Good morning and welcome to Cradle to Career Community Engagement Advisory Board meeting. We're going to get started here in one moment, but just bear with us as we bring all of our technical components together.
Right, Mary Kate, we're good to go.
Wonderful. Good morning and welcome to Cradle to Career's Community Engagement Advisory Board meeting. My name is Mary Kate Cruz-Jones and I am the Chief of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships. Today's meeting will be a hybrid meeting with members conducting this meeting from remote locations all throughout the state of California. And we have some C2C staff operating out of Cradle to Career Data Systems office at 400 R Street in Sacramento. I want to welcome and thank the members of the public who have joined us here today. I do see that there's some folks with us, so thank you and welcome. Before we begin, a small note to members, please ensure that you remain on camera throughout the duration of the meeting to be in compliance with the requirements set forth in the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. If at any moment members need to step away from their cameras or turn them off, this should be shared with fellow members and the public. And remember, if you could just reach out to my team, we can also help and voice this over for you. We will be offering translation services today in Spanish. Thank you, Mark Gutierrez and Leticia Reina, for your help today. To listen to the comments given in Spanish, please select that globe icon at the bottom of the screen that says interpretation, and then select language interpretation and your language, such as Spanish. We will then hear a live, you will then hear a live rendering of the comments in Spanish. And I will pause for a moment for Mark Gutierrez, our Spanish interpreter, to translate for us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Yes, we'll provide the same language access instructions for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenos días a todos que nos acompañan en español. Queremos dejarles saber que tenemos interpretación a vivo disponible para el día de hoy. En la parte inferior de su pantalla encontrará un icono de un globo terráqueo que dice Interpretation o interpretación. Selecciónelo y de ahí seleccione su idioma Spanish o español. Y así podrá escuchar el programa enteramente en su idioma. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Mary Kate. Back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. For all members speaking today, we ask that you introduce yourselves and say your job title or affiliation. And please say your name slowly and then pause briefly, proceeding with your comments. So I'd be happy to begin. Mary Kate Cruz-Jones, Chief of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships. All right. I'd like to begin today. We acknowledge that this virtual meeting is taking place throughout the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. I am joining today from Sacramento, the tribal land of the Maidu, Miwok, and Nisenan people, whose presence, past, present, and future, we honor and respect. We will now pause for a moment to reflect. We recognize the ancestral land on which we are collectively gathered and our responsibility to support support and foster the learning through the dissemination of knowledge consistent with the Cradle to Career Data Systems work to advance equity. We hope this acknowledgement encourages individuals to think about what it means to occupy space on Indigenous lands, and we invite attendees to learn more about the ancestral lands on which they reside here. And there's a link for us right there. Thank you. Let's take a look at today's agenda. So today's meeting will be run according to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. There are 9 items on our agenda, and all companion materials are posted on the Cradle to Career website. So if you're joining us, please feel free to click on this link and you can see images here to how to navigate our website and better access this material. So please feel free to join us in that way. Before we begin today's meeting and in upholding C2C's transparency value, I'd like to share a few housekeeping notes. Today and in future meetings, to help us stay on track timing-wise, we'll have a timer in the Zoom app, and that will run during the proposal presentations. When the timer is running, folks can see the timer on the right-hand corner in Zoom, as well as in my box. And this will allow us to be mindful of the time and also visually assist with the pacing. To help us set the tone for today's meeting, I hope that today's session will be really engaging. And thank you, members, in advance for all the time and thought and preparation that you put into your work here done before today. During agenda item number 5, the Cradle-to-Career engagement team will walk advisory board members through work from our annual work plan, and members will have the opportunity to leverage their expertise, unique experiences, and perspectives to inform the current work of Cradle-to-Career. In addition, today we will also have an opportunity for advisory board members to provide recommendations on future opportunities for Cradle-to-Career, and this will specifically happen during agenda item 6. The office values your partnership and open feedback, and I would also like to take a moment to thank you all for joining us today. As always, we appreciate your engagement and we are listening. For members of the public who are listening in and are interested specifically in agenda item 6, that's going to happen in the later half of our meeting. So feel free to tune back in. We anticipate taking this agenda item around 12:30 p.m. and feel free to come back during that time. But we'd love to have you the whole time. We have a very full agenda today. We hope to end today's meeting in the late afternoon. We anticipate breaking around 12:20 today and then adjourning the meeting hopefully right around 2 p.m. So I'd like to call this meeting to order at 10:07, and I ask my colleague, Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, to please call the roll.
Okay. Member Ahmed?
Present.
Member Butler?
Present.
Member Countryman Quiros?
Present.
Member Gamboa?
Present.
Member Gonzalez?
Present.
Member Gottlieb?
Present.
Member Gratich?
Present.
Member Johnson?
Present.
Member Jones?
Present.
Member Lopez? Member Lopez Valdez?
Present.
Member Maestas?
Present.
Member McCullough Carmison?
Present.
Member Nguyen?
Present.
Member Rosso?
Present.
And Member Takagi.
Present.
For the clarity of the record, we have 15 members present. We have a quorum.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, which is the introduction of our new Community Engagement Advisory Board members. At the August 15, 2025 Governing Board meeting, the Governing Board appointed 6 new Community Engagement Advisory Board members to serve a 3-year term through 2028. And today I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our 6 new Community Engagement Advisory Board members. So on behalf of the office and your fellow colleagues, welcome. We're very excited to have you here today. And you just saw a slight preview. We're going to go through each member. Members, you'll see your photo, and that will prompt you. I'll also introduce you. And then if you could give us about a 30-minute introduction of yourself. And we will start with Member Ahmed, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Daria. I'm a recent grad from UCLA and also a Youth Justice Fellow with the Social Justice Learning Institute. I'm from Anaheim, and I'm really excited to be here today and be an advocate for our community members and our students.
Fabulous, thank you. We will now hear from Member Butler.
Good morning, everyone. Omar Butler. I am the Chief Executive Officer of New Door Ventures, which is a workforce development organization serving transition age youth in the Bay Area. I'm native of San Francisco, and excited to be part of this community. California is bigger than.
Thank you. Member Gradich.
Hi everyone, I am Abigail. I am the career advisor at Cal Poly Humboldt, and I am very interested in learning more about how to support students in their college to career transition, and I'm excited to be here today.
Yay, thank you. Member Maestas.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Juliette Maestas. I'm a Native American, enrolled from a Northern California tribe where I'm coming from today, ancestral lands of the Hoopa Valley tribal people. Very honored and blessed to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Member McCullough Carmison.
Hi, my name is Danielle, and I am the Ferndale Unified School District Superintendent, also the principal of the elementary school, and I am happy to be here as well. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Member Rosso.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Vincent Rosso, currently serve as the Director of Government Relations on behalf of the University of California Student Association. I manage state and federal policy for over 230,000 undergraduates across the UC system. Originally from the Inland Empire, and I graduated from UC Riverside, go Highlanders. And yeah, just really honored to be here, be part of this advisory board.
Fantastic. Thank you. A special thank you to all of our new members. We are very grateful to have your insights and your participation. And at this time, I'd like to pause for a photo of our new Community Engagement Advisory Board members. So for all other members, can you please just take down your cameras for a moment, and then we can let our new members take a virtual shot together.
All right, I'm going to be taking the photo. Shannon, would you mind turning your camera off? So sorry. Didn't mean to kick you out. All right, folks. In 3, 2, 1, give me a big smile. And we'll take one more just for reassurance. 3, 2, 1. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Now, I've learned this the hard way. So if members can all come off mute so that I'm not clapping by myself, and if we could do a warm welcome to all of our new Community Engagement Advisory Board members. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, to any of our other colleagues, would you like any member questions, comments in this section before we move on?
Member Gamboa here. I just want to welcome you all and thank you all for stepping up. We're excited to collaborate with you and continue the expansion of the amazing work here at C2C.
Well said. Brilliant. Well, perfect. Thank you all. We're very excited to be in community with everybody here today. And I'd love to now move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 3, our consent calendar. I will be presenting this. So the matters on the consent calendar are routine in nature and are approved by a single vote. Prior to action by the Community Engagement Advisory Board, members and the public will be given the opportunity to remove any item from the consent calendar. Items removed from the consent calendar may be heard immediately following approval of the consent calendar or set aside until later in the day. The items on the consent calendar are reflected on our next slide. Brilliant, perfect. We have the last set of advisory boards meeting minutes. So can I have a motion?
Member Gonzalez, I will motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Member Gamboa will second.
Wonderful. I have a motion for Member Gonzalez. I have a second from Member Gamboa. Brilliant. Thank you so much to approve these meeting minutes. And what we'll do next is we'll open it up for public comment, and I'd love to ask my colleague, Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, to please lead us through this section.
Okay, confirming we have no one at the C2C office wishing to comment. For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment on this agenda item. Okay, at this time, I see no raised hands for public comment. I will close this portion of the agenda item.
Brilliant. With a motion and the second on the table, let's just go straight into that roll call. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, please.
Member Ahmed,
Present.
Member Butler, Member Butler,
Present.
Member Countryman Quiros.
Present.
Okay, Member Gamboa,
Present.
Member Gonzalez,
Present.
Member Gottlieb,
Aye.
Member Gratich,
Present.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Member Jones,
Aye.
Member Lopez,
Aye.
Member Lopez Valdez,
Aye.
Member Maestas,
Present.
Member McCullough Carmison,
Aye.
Member Nguyen,
Aye.
Member Rosso,
Aye.
Member Takagi.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 16 ayes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The motion passes with 16 ayes. So brilliant. And members, if helpful, at the beginning of the meeting, when we do an initial quorum check, helpful to stay present then. And then when we're doing procedural votes, yes, aye, anything in that realm is helpful. But thank you all for your 16 votes. That passes. Okay, we'll now be moving on to agenda item 4. Update on the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data, which will be presented by our Executive Director, Miriam Bates, and I would be very pleased to pass the mic to her now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Kate Cruz-Jones. It's wonderful to be here with all of you this morning. Special welcome to our new members of this advisory board. It's so nice to have you all here this morning, and I'm just so grateful to be doing this work together with you. Just reflecting that our time is our most valuable resource, and you're spending a lot of time not only being here in these meetings and preparing for them, but also just to learn about the work of Cradle to Career, to really learn about all that we're doing in partnership with our data providers, in partnership with communities, and to share your ideas of how we can strengthen this work and make sure that it reaches all of California's communities. So warm welcome to our new members, and I'm just so grateful that of the many deserving uses of your time, you're dedicating your time to volunteer on this advisory board. So we're very grateful to have you here. I'm going to give an update that gives you some quick updates on the work of the office that have happened since your last meeting earlier this summer. So I'll talk a bit about the release of what we're calling Query Builder 1.0. That's the data files that we released on our website last month. An update on a new lesson plan challenge, the annual work plan for this fiscal year, the legislative report we submitted at the end of the summer, the new budget actions that were taken, and engagement opportunities for you. If we can go to the next slide. All right. So we, as you know, in April of this year, we released the first dashboard for Cradle to Career. It's available on our website, the Student Pathways dashboard. It has 6 visualizations, and people can play with the different filters to explore different aspects of those dashboards. There are more than 9,000 cuts of data behind each of those pictures. by the time you filter by all of the school districts, the legislative districts, race, ethnicity, gender, foster youth status, etc., there's more than 9,000 cuts of data behind that. And as soon as we released the dashboard, we started hearing from the community, especially the research community, that they love the dashboard and they don't want to have to click download 9,000 times to get at the underlying data. And so our office got a request to say, can't you put all of that aggregated data all in one place where it's easy for people to access that? So we listened to that user feedback and created the page on our website that you see a screenshot of here, which is all the underlying data of the dashboard in a few neat and tidy CSV files. And what I love about this is that it's really a great example of the work you all strengthen here and how we respond to what people need for different purposes. So to be clear, the data in the dashboard and the data on the files page here, the Query Builder page, are exactly the same. It's the same data, but for very different purposes. So if I'm a student or I'm a practitioner and I just want to look at something from my district, I go to the dashboard. It's really easy to use. If I'm a researcher who wants to create new and different analyses using the underlying data, a CSV file might not be the most beautiful thing in the world, but it looks beautiful to a researcher who wants to be able to use the underlying data. So we're really excited about it. We've seen people already, coming to the page and engaging with it, and most importantly, developing their own blogs or articles or fact sheet using the underlying data. And I'm really excited. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, there's a feedback form where any member of the public can share with us, here's how I use the data, here's what I built with it. So if you're doing that, if you're working with others who are, please let us know what products you're developing with the underlying data, whether it's a blog or an article or a data visualization, because we want to track that and understand how people are using the data and how it's useful to them. So this is the first step of what we're calling our Query Builder tools, which essentially let members of the public work with the underlying data in a custom way and in the way that they find useful. So that's the release of the Query Builder. If we can go to the next slide. A key goal for us this year is to maximize the reach of that dashboard and the data tools that we've released, and to make sure that people know about it and that they're using the information that's their data. So we launched a lesson plan challenge, and this is a statewide invitation for teachers to design a lesson plan that teaches learners how to use and engage with the Student Pathways dashboard. And it's really about encouraging that data literacy and, again, ensuring that this dashboard is actually reaching the students and educators across the state. So we launched this last month. The submission deadline isn't until the spring, so there's plenty of time to get the word out to lots of different educators. If we can go to the next slide. This lesson plan challenge is open to many people. So if you're a middle school teacher, a high school teacher, college faculty, a teacher in training, this lesson plan challenge is open to all of those different groups of educators. And there are a couple of links here that you all can share with your networks. So there's a link to the page on our website that has all of the information. And we also have some social media that you can amplify and put out there. And I really want to credit Belicia Smith from our executive office, who's drawing on her extensive professional experience prior to joining Cradle-to-Career this summer and is spearheading the vision and strategy for this project. So two opportunities for you. One, you can share this with your networks and you can share with us ideas for how we can get the word out about this. Also, if you're interested in grading the submissions that we get, please reach out to Mary Kate or Belicia about that as well. So there's multiple ways for you to be engaged in this. Next slide, please. All right, each year we're required in our statute to submit an annual report to the legislature. This is an opportunity for our team to highlight the work that we've done collaboratively with our partners and to map out the work ahead as well. So if we can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, we submit this regular report that goes both to the governor and to the California State Legislature on the implementation of the data system. And it's due at the beginning of September and talks about the prior fiscal year. So June through July 24 through 25. And I encourage you to read the report to the legislature, especially if you're new to the advisory board. It's a nice way to have a quick summary. Excuse me. Apologies, my allergies are acting up. The report to the legislature is an easy way to have a high-level overview of the work of our office across the data work, across the engagement work that we do. In the report, it's a written document that you can read, but we've also highlighted, if we can go to the next slide, a few of the key by the numbers successes and progress that we've made. So I'll just highlight a few of these. If you look at the upper left-hand corner here on the dark navy background, 11,000 California high school seniors shared their voices in last year's student experience report. If you're new to our work, we write a student experience report each year. Last year, we did this in collaboration with the California Student Aid Commission and with the Education Lab at UC Davis. And it's really intended to ground our work in the experiences that students have today. So it's a complement to the retrospective longitudinal data that we're shepherding here in the data system to hear students' voices each year. In the middle in bright blue, you can see what I already mentioned. 9,000 cuts of data power the disaggregation in the Student Pathways data story. And this is incredibly important because, as you know, when we were doing the user-centered design for the dashboard and really listening to you, to members of the community, to people who came to our community conversations, by far and away the most requested feature for the dashboard was the ability to break down the data by geography and to break down the data by student characteristics. And so we really leaned into that, and that's why there's so many cuts of data behind each of those pictures. A lot of people have been visiting the dashboard. As of August, we had more than 67,000 views to the dashboard page. And we released that with a lot of companion materials, including the 6 tutorial videos that are available in English and Spanish to help people navigate the data story and to find the information that's of interest to them. The other numbers on this page, the more than 30 new data points, the task force on workforce data, the new data providers added, these all speak to the major expansion of the data system that we're working on right now this fall with our partners at the Labor and Workforce Development Agency and their departments and boards. So as we've built the initial data system and built this dashboard, there's been a long recognition that understanding paths, including workforce training programs, including the state apprenticeship data, would be incredibly helpful and add a lot of new insights to the information in the data system. So we've had a fantastic collaboration with Labor and Workforce Development Agency. They've come forward, as I said, with more than 30 new data points, and our team's been very hard at work this fall on creating the file upload specifications that define exactly which data points from which underlying data sets will be shared with us this spring in our next regular data submission in March. So we're really excited about that work. Next slide, please. A couple more numbers I'll highlight here. Our team received an Innovation Summit Award for collaboration, which is one of our key values here at C2C. We've had more than 600 people participating in our virtual community conversations, both here in California and across the country. 61% of our contractors last fiscal year were certified small businesses. In orange at the top here, 436 districts and local education agencies are partnering with our partners at CCGI, who run californiacolleges.edu, the state's college and career planning platform, to reach more than 2.3 million 6th through 12th grade public school students. So we're really excited about the statewide expansion that CCGI is working on. And then very relevant to you, we received more than 100 applications for the new positions on this advisory board and on the Data and Tools Advisory Board. And so we're just so grateful to be doing this work in a context with such tremendous interest from across the state. So many congrats to the new advisory board members who are here. And of course, we do this work in the context of our 21 governing board members who make the decisions and provide guidance on the work, and to the 32 voices on our advisory boards who really bring new and innovative ideas to this. And finally, I'm really excited about that box in the bottom right-hand corner, which is that we have a 0% staff vacancy rate. Building the C2C team has been the thing I've been most passionate about and starting the office. And I'm really excited that we have all of our positions filled, all 27. We're a tiny team to do this work together with you. Next slide. All right. Each year, our governing board votes on a 12-month work plan that is connected to their multi-year strategic plan that defines what are we going to focus on this year. So if we can go to the next slide. Each page of the work plan focuses on a different area of the work. The screenshot that we've put on this slide for you is the one that focuses on engagement because that's most relevant to your board's focus. You can find the whole work plan in the resources section of our website. And the main thing I want to highlight is that this is a really ambitious work plan that is going to max out the efforts of our 27-person team. And I just want to be explicit about this because your job is to show up with new ideas, and that's great. And that's what you're doing today. You're going to be providing feedback on the work we have planned on engagement, and then you'll also be sharing some of your new proposals. That's a wonderful thing. And we already have a work plan for this year that's maxing out our team's efforts. So I just wanted to highlight the reality that taking on new and additional efforts beyond our work plan requires new resources in future years. That's how things work. That's how the budget process works with the state. So I just want to say that because sometimes in our conversations with the advisory boards, it can feel like, well, why wouldn't you want to do this great new idea? And it's because doing a new idea will require us to deprioritize something else that we've already committed to do this year. So some patience is required sometimes on when we can take on new ideas and the trade-offs involved in that. One thing I'll also just mention as you look at the work plan overall, from the data side, the main things we're focused on this year, one was the release of those data files that happened last month that we just talked about. The other major focus is developing a secure data enclave so that researchers who request access to the underlying data can do studies in a controlled sandbox environment. We're also working on really expanding the underlying capability of the data system to let us build new data tools and working on some new data system use cases, including a data report for the Student Aid Commission and data to support CalKids Take Up. Next slide, please. This I already covered. In engagement, the main things we're prioritizing with our resources this year is really ensuring the reach of our data tools is maximized. We're doing some data walks and data academies that you'll discuss more in a moment, advancing accessibility and language access efforts. Next slide. A few updates related to the budget. The budget can be complex. There are multiple different bills that together form what we think of as the California budget. So I'll just highlight a few that have budget updates that are relevant to Cradle-to-Career and our partners. So the first one here, which is called the Budget Bill Junior, includes 1.5 million ongoing general fund for the new California Education Interagency Council under the Government Operations Agency. ABSB 123, the Higher Education Trailer Bill, includes investments related to the Master Plan for Career Education. Those are mostly in this trailer bill, and that includes 25 million in Proposition 98 funds for the Community College Chancellor's Office to develop a career passport or a learner-employer record. The bill includes language that directs Cradle-to-Career and the Labor and Workforce Development Agency to work to support the Chancellor's Office in this effort. The trailer bill also includes $6.5 million for the e-transcript California platform for the Chancellor's Office to develop a revamp of that platform. And it also includes $15 million for the Chancellor's Office Credit for Prior Learning Initiative as well. All right, the Budget Act of 25-26 includes the annual budget for CCGI, the California College Guidance Initiative, which runs californiacolleges.edu, and that's about $23.6 million. which includes an increase of 3 million ongoing in Proposition 98 funding. This is also where there's some resources for Cradle to Career related to that career passport, including one position ongoing, as well as $500,000 in one-time funds for this year. So that's a lot of information. If you have more questions, feel free to ask our office and we can send you more information as well. All right, next slide. How you can engage. So we already talked about bullet point 1. You can share the lesson plan challenge. You can volunteer to grade submissions to that. You can help your community access and use the dashboard, the data tools that we're building. You can share ideas related to the priority projects in our work plan for this fiscal year. And that's really going to be the heart of your session this morning before our brief break around lunchtime. So that's your opportunity, again, to share ideas related to the work we have planned for this year. So if you want ideas that are, can really shape our work now, that's the moment this morning in that session. And I know you've already begun brainstorming on that. And then you can also share big picture ideas that could shape future year's work. That's your afternoon session, right? Where you're bringing new proposals and new ideas as well. And so, in all of these, as we've discussed in prior meetings, you can consider the trade-offs between advocating for new work and new ideas versus providing ideas on how we can be more efficient or enhance the work that's already being prioritized today for our office. So you can walk through some of those trade-offs as well. So Shannon will walk you through some of those projects this morning, and then your ideas, new ideas, will be the heart of this afternoon's sessions. That concludes my update, and I'm happy to spend a few minutes answering any questions you have.
Brilliant. And to voice things over, thank you, Mary Ann Bates, for that wonderful presentation. Members, we have about 15 minutes here allocated for member deliberation and questions. So it would be wonderful if folks could just indicate with their hand if they want to start that member dialogue. All right, Member Gamboa, please.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Really quick question. I want to know, is there a priority list of investment for all this as we come up with this new administration and what's going on right now?
Is your question if there's a priority list for future investment?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. So I think what I would recommend looking at in terms of public documents would be the budget items that our board votes on at their August meeting each year. So both in August 2024 and in August 2025, our governing board voted on potential budget requests to have additional resources for the office and additional staff positions for the office. And the board made that vote, understanding the challenging context of the state budget both last year and this year. But I would point you to those resources. If you go on the meetings page of our website, you can click on the archive of meetings, which is how you can see prior meetings, and then go to the August meeting for 2025, and you can see that material. What's in there and what you can see is that we talk about the statutory charge of C2C and the areas where currently the staff positions we have and the resources that we have don't allow us to fully meet our obligations on that, and the priority areas that we think are most important. So for example, there's a whole section around data privacy and data security, which has always been and continues to be a priority for the Cradle to Career office. Given the size of our team, there's a lot of key person dependency, especially on our legal team and in our technical teams around that. And so that's where we highlight the importance and the need for those resources. And I would frame that in two ways. One is that simply stewarding the breadth and the depth of the data that our providers have shared with Cradle to Career requires a lot of expertise on data privacy and data security and subject matter knowledge on the underlying domains, from K-12 to higher ed to workforce to social services. And also, we think of Cradle to Career as a shared utility for the state. And so increasingly, if there's a question about data sharing, if there's a question about data privacy, if there's a question about technical solutions on that, our team can also serve as a resource and partner with other entities across the state. So thank you for that question. I would point you to those resources because it talks through both kind of the risks and the opportunities, the risks we could address and the opportunities that we could act on with additional resources there as well. So that's on kind of the requests. Big picture, just my observation from the executive director perspective is that the career portion of our name, right, Cradle to Career, is where we've had the most interest and curiosity because that's where linking data across silos really illuminates what you couldn't otherwise see. So here's what I mean by that. Many of you are in higher education, for example. You probably have tons of data within your own institution for the students while they're there. It's much harder for you to see data on where they were before and what happens after. Same is true if you're in K-12. Same is true if you're operating a workforce program, like a job training program. And so the ability that we have to link to earnings records and help people see what's actually happening. Are people getting jobs? Are they achieving opportunity? That can really provide a lot of insights that are hard to see otherwise. And so that's part of why we're really excited about the expansion of the workforce data with our Labor and Workforce Development Agency partners. It's also why the earnings data that the Employment Development Department shares with C2C is so crucial to all of this. So I love your question. That's why I have such a long-winded answer. I'll just conclude with, if you look at the dashboard, there are 6 pictures. The last 2 really look at what happens when you bring in the earnings data, right? You can see who's working while they're in college. How much are they working, right? How much are they earning? And then the last picture is saying once someone gets a degree, how much do they earn a year later, 4 years later, et cetera. And it's like the shape of that line over time that's really captured a lot of interest and I think can illuminate a lot of questions that are just hard to answer without the longitudinal link data. So that's a long-winded way of saying, if I had to describe the major focus area for the coming years, I would say that the Cradle-to-Career data system is well positioned to illuminate insights around jobs and opportunity and how those connect to the different education and workforce pathways that Californians take.
Thank you so much. Great answer.
Member Lopez, please.
Hi, I had a question. I agree that there's a lot of us that work in higher education institutions or just higher ed in general. So I'm curious, are you all waiting to see how the teacher challenge goes to then maybe do something similar like for higher education folks to try to create, just something with our information as well and also promote them using our website, our data to create, like you said, even maybe informational pamphlets or presentations for students or things to share with administration. So is that in the works yet? Has that been brought up, or is it we're just gonna wait to see how this first challenge goes and then maybe grow from there?
So the lesson plan challenge is open to people in higher education. It's not intended to be just the lesson plan challenge for K-12 educators. So when Shannon in the session this morning would love to hear your ideas on how to make this maximally salient to and relevant for the higher education community too. Because we expect that especially college students who are taking data analytics classes, for example, or education policy classes, or who are just curious about their own data here in California might be really interested in that. So we would love to see submissions to the lesson plan challenge from the higher education community too. And if you have ideas on how we can make that salient, we're all ears.
Member Takagi, please.
Hi, this is more of a comment, but I just really wanted to thank Mary Ann Bates for your leadership and the C2C team for their commitment to this work during this time, especially when the value of education is being questioned and just given the tighter budget and landscape that we're operating on. And I really look forward to continuing to develop more tools and working with you all to make sure that we can get the data in the hands of students and their families across the state, rural communities, urban, suburban, making sure that they can make informed decisions with their education. I would also love to do a community conversation, either virtually or in person, to really show the potential deliverables and what we can actually do with this data to drive action-driven policy, also just like fact sheets and things like that. I think we have various levels of data literacy, so I'd love to have a conversation on what this looks like in praxis, and just look forward to engaging with you all and advancing this work.
Thanks so much for that and for sharing that idea. Really appreciate it.
Member Johnson, please.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you for your presentation. I think I have a bit more of like an in the weeds question, but it's related to the feedback around the query builder. So I know you said there's a piece there where people can submit it, and I have seen like blogs from different entities, like or different orgs. So that's been really exciting too to see it from people who are not necessarily an advisory board member or a board member, and seeing their orgs really take some of that. Have you had people actually submit those to the feedback? Like, have people been using that tool to make sure they're sharing back with you all? Just sort of wanting to see, like, how do we make sure that the tools that you guys are building on the website, like people know how to submit there, or like it is the right tool to get them to use it. Just wanted to see if we've been getting those submissions.
Submissions through the feedback form specifically.
Yeah.
Shannon will be better positioned to answer that, so I'll ask her to speak to that when she presents in a moment, because I'm not the one who's in the weeds on the form submissions themselves. So I'll let her answer that specific point, but it's a good question. And I think the way we think about this is that the feedback form is one of multiple ways that we learn how people are using it. So obviously our comms team has many Google alerts set up for keywords so that we can find uses even if someone doesn't bother to put it in the form. And I think a lot of this also relies on the relationships and knowing and people feeling comfortable telling us, hey, here's this thing that I made. So we think of the feedback form as one mechanism because we want to make sure anyone has a way of reaching out, even if they aren't on an advisory board or don't know us personally, but it's not the only one. So I'll ask Shannon to mention that when she presents in a moment. Thank you for the question.
Any other curiosities or comments from members? We probably have time for one more. Okay. Well, thank you, Marianne Bates, for that informative presentation. And thank you so much, members, for your thoughtful questions and comments. That will wrap up agenda item 4. And I'm very excited that we can move on to agenda item 5, which is an update and discussion, on the Cradle-to-Career Data's language access, accessibility, training, and outreach initiatives. This agenda item will be presented by Angelique Palomar, Deputy Director of Communications, Cynthia Lopez Montes, Communications and Language Access Coordinator, and Shannon Serrato, Director of Engagement, as well as Lorenzo Gamboa, Community Engagement Advisory Board Member, Member Gamboa, and Marissa Johnson, another one of our Community Engagement Advisory Board members. So I will pass it off now, and thank you so much.
So good morning, members. My name is Shannon Serrato, and I'm the Director of Engagement here at Cradle-to-Career, and I'm glad to kick off today's discussion about C2C's engagement efforts. But first, I'm going to answer this question directly about the engagement form, the feedback form for Query Builder, because I don't want to lose that thread. So just acknowledging that we have received feedback Some of the blogs that you've seen publicly posted have also been shared via the portal. So that has just been a nice way for folks to let us know that those things have happened. And then I also want to share that this has come up in the joint advisory board member meeting that you all were on a couple of months ago. Not only making sure that folks can share the work with us is important, but we also want to know who is sharing with doing the work and where their communities are. And so we have a couple of demographic questions asking about region and the populations that these folks serve. And so it serves a kind of multiple mechanisms. We want to know that people are using the tool. That's ultimately our goal. Marianne said it really well, though, but we can see we have many, many alerts. We have many, many threads that we can pull from that. But we really want to make sure as we're thinking about the communities that we are reaching and how folks are using it, that we have that information so that that portal serves as that function as well. So thank you for that question. I just wanted to amplify it. In addition to just wanting to know who's using it, we want to know how they're using it in the communities that they're serving. So that was my long-winded answer for the morning. Next slide, please. Okay. So when folks ask me what I do every day, my standard answer is that I oversee most things external facing, which includes communications, legislative affairs, and governance. But at its core, engagement is all about working with people. And my team's mission is to ensure equitable access for all Californians, which includes students and their families, educators, policymakers, and the public more broadly. So today we're going to explore the initiatives that we've planned for this fiscal year. You've heard that we're focused very specifically on this year's work plan and the FY 25-26 fiscal year. Importantly, we want to discuss how we can collaborate and engage with you all to design, develop, and implement effective programming. Our goal is to reach as many people as possible so that they know about Cradle-to-Career, and it's crucial that we tailor our information to help everyone engage with and utilize C2C's resources and tools regardless of their backgrounds. So during this agenda item, members will have an opportunity to receive updates on C2C's planned engagement efforts as detailed in the 12-month work plan. This agenda item is broken down into 3 distinct sections, as you've heard: language access, accessibility, and training and outreach. Each section will include an update from C2C staff, followed by member deliberation. So before today's meeting, the office asked you all to answer discussion questions. During this agenda item, we will use your responses to spark discussion about C2C's engagement efforts. And I just want to acknowledge that this can be tricky to answer some questions without receiving the updates first from us. So I just want to thank you all for taking time to prepare. We now have a wealth of knowledge that lives within the document. I think we are at 107 pages of feedback from members. So I just really appreciate your thoughts well in advance. And we know that this is a shift from how we've held discussions in past meetings. So we acknowledge that we aren't expecting you all to have the right answers. This is not intended to be a quiz. We just want to make sure that we are truly tapping your deep knowledge that you have within and about your communities, and that you're able to engage with each other without having to think about questions on the spot. So just wanted to say that from the outset. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Kate Cruz-Jones to share some updates regarding member responses to the discussion questions.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you so much, Shannon Serrato. So as Shannon just shared, before today's meeting, the office asked members to answer discussion questions found in the corresponding staff report. Members were asked to email their responses to Ronnie Jones, a senior consultant from Leading Resources, by Friday, October 17th, which was a week ago today. And all member responses that Ronnie received were compiled in a member feedback document, which was shared prior to today's meeting. So this was uploaded to Box and then linked to the C2C website on the meeting page. So folks following along in the public, you might recall at the beginning of this meeting, we showed you that meeting page, and there's that Box link there if you want to follow along with what members have provided with us. I do want to share, though, that link is only going to be effective through 5 p.m. today. So it will be taken down. So future folks that are watching this meeting, you won't be able to access that. This is a today thing. So thanks everybody that's here with us, and hopefully you find that document. Okay. So I just also want to uplift Shannon and Marianne's thoughts. Y'all took a lot of time and effort to answer these questions, and just a moment of gratitude. You showed up and we appreciate it. So thank you. Now I'd like to hand it over to Cynthia Lopez Montes. She is C2C's Communications and Language Access Coordinator and will kick off the discussion on accessibility, focusing on language access. Please, Cynthia.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Hi, everyone. I am Cynthia Lopez Montes. I, as Mary Kate said, am C2C's Communications and Language Access Coordinator. And so just to kick off, as part of C2C's fiscal year 2025-2026 work plan, we are collaborating with our language access liaisons, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, to work on implementing our language access plan. The plan was created with equity in mind, and will continue to be an important part of our engagement efforts here at C2C. Since I began my position as language access coordinator 1 year ago, and it has been exactly 1 year, C2C has successfully created and published our language access plan and created a Spanish resources page on the C2C website. We've implemented cards on our recorded meetings that say that Spanish audio will begin momentarily, instead of having either just silence or just English audio that could confuse whoever's watching the meeting at the beginning. And then we've also shifted our language access survey into a Google form. So diving a little deeper into our language access survey, because we are not a government office that receives calls from quote unquote customers, we don't have a type of language access survey that makes note of how many callers ask for an interpreter, as well as what language was specified. So our workaround to this has been to create a language access survey for those who visit our website and receive our newsletter to fill out. It asks questions like what languages are spoken in your household, and it asks practitioners, the communities they serve, what primary languages they help with. So like I mentioned before, this is a Google form, and we switched it to a Google form because it allows for people to use the Google Translate tool at the top of the page to translate it into whatever their preferred language is. Since we know that the majority of people in California speak Spanish, we also have instructions in Spanish at the top of the page that tell people how to use that Google Translate tool. In addition to the card signaling that Spanish audio will begin shortly, like I said before, we're also working on streamlining the naming conventions of our translated meeting recordings, and that is to help make it easier for people to find the meetings that they're looking for. So this will also include changing the names of past videos so that they're all adhering to this new naming convention. And the convention will be type of meeting, followed by the date, all in Spanish. So for example, this meeting would be the Community Engagement Advisory Board meeting, followed by the date, which is October 24th, 2025. In Spanish, this would be Reunión de la Junta Asesora de Participación Comunitaria, 24 de octubre 2025. So C2C continues to have all meetings translated in Spanish in real time. And I want to thank our interpreters who are here today, Mark Gutierrez and Leticia Reina, for their hard work. I also want to give a shout out to the ASL interpreters who join us during our governing board meetings. Their work is not an easy feat, and I always enjoy listening when I'm not too busy behind the scenes. We are focused on ensuring that the data points and all other pertinent information on our website is written in plain language, and that is to help people in digesting the materials and to help with interpretation via the Google Translate tool. So using plain language allows for the automated translation of our agendas, blogs, and web pages to be easier to read in a different language without key phrases and words getting too lost in translation. So as part of this, we have shifted from posting our PDF agendas to having them be HTML agendas on our website. And that also allows for easier accessibility for readers, for those who use screen readers. So now I want to hand it over to our language access liaisons, members Lorenzo Gamboa and Marisa Johnson. So I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you all again. For me, it's been really rewarding to actually work with this committee and this group because, you know, I get to see firsthand how much it really means, not only to us as members, but also to the team, and the care and the genuine interest that they bring forth is really amazing. In the March committee engagement advisory board meeting, the C2C staff actually reached out after they presented and said, hey, we're putting this together. Are there people who might be interested in coming up with a language access initiative? I, along with member Johnson, jumped at this opportunity to volunteer because we saw the interest, we saw the passion, and just the call out to be able to represent communities that we work with, right? I myself, being a first-gen family, first-gen student, remember very well having to try to interpret some of these things to my own parents. And so now I get to be a member to impact that. So it's been really, really amazing. Member Johnson and I were always talking about, like, how do we make these better? How do we share these ideas? How do we continue to grow just the opportunities of language? And this allowed us to come together. And for me, it's just astonishing to see how fast and how much we've been able to accomplish in just this short amount of time, given the resources and the limitations of what we all do. However, it's been beautiful to see it continue to grow, and you all see it on the website from all the amazing work that everybody's been doing, and excited just to see how much more we're going to be able to do. From making the website easier to navigate to Spanish-speaking communities who are looking to, get the information from the public. But we've also been able to see testament of how much C2C has been able to, again, look at all communities in the state of California and understand their pathways. I, again, want to say I'm honored and thank you for the privilege and the benefit of working with all of you. I will now pass it over to Member Johnson to share a little bit more about what we've been able to accomplish in the past 5 months. So, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Member Gimboa. It really has been such a joy to be a part of these meetings. And we all started this. It sounds like a lot, and it has been, because we just started this as a group back in May and really just hit the ground running. In just 5 months of our collaboration together, the C2C team really took Lorenzo and I's ideas and made them real tangible items. There was the Spanish resource page, the tooltip language that provides instructions on how to use C2C's translate tool to translate the web page, providing Spanish instructions for how to navigate the dashboard, finalized the language access plan, updated the language survey to capture individuals who work with populations with limited English proficiency, and disseminated the survey. And finally, brainstorming how a translated dashboard could serve our target audience better. And so, again, it's just been such an honor to do this work, to really just be able to be with Member Gamboa and ideate, how do we make C2C more accessible for everyone across the state? But I really want to give a huge shout out to the Cradle-to-Career staff who have been working with us and really making our ideas a reality, and being able to see these tools in action for Californians whose primary language is not English. And I know how passionate they all are about this, about language access and doing it right, not just doing it. And so I know that this is just the beginning, and I can't wait to continue to see this work develop and what happens next. I'll now pass it back to Cynthia.
Thank you both so much. It's been so fun meeting with you and talking about this and knowing that this is important for all of us. The C2C, along with our language access liaisons, are mindful of the importance of equity when it comes to disseminating information to the public. We will continue to focus our resources on making sure that accessibility is a focus across all C2C's materials and website. So we're going to work on getting the C2C Student Pathways data story translated. We're also working on our Spanish translation guide with Lorenzo and Marisa. And we're also continuing our push to increase responses to our language access survey so that we have a better idea of how to meet the needs of our audience. So prior to today's meeting, members had an opportunity to answer the following questions about language access. So I'm going to have these up on the screen, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Kate Cruz Jones so we can start the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Cynthia just did a great job of voicing that over, so I can see that the questions are on the screen for folks. And what we'd like to do is open it up. We can maybe see how about 15 minutes goes for member deliberation. And just thank you so much, Cynthia Lopez Montes, for presenting that. Members Gamboa and Johnson for all of your work with Cradle-to-Career and this language access. And all right, let's open it up for member discussion. Let's start digging into things. So if members would like to raise their hand, you can voice over some of the responses that you've had. You can comment on others' responses. Let's just start the engagement here. So please start raising your hand. Thank you, Member Gamboa. Let's start with you.
I just want to thank you all for taking the time and energy to reflect on these questions. I mean, if you look at the document, it's a lot of comments, which is incredible. And I think it really helps to be able to sit with these questions beforehand. And I see a lot of thought and interest in it, which was incredible. I think we can take a lot of nuggets out of this. I do wish to elevate just one of the things that I was seeing very common throughout the responses, which is there's a difference between creating access through a door and creating access through a bridge with data. And, you know, we often try to think about like how we make this accessible, and sometimes creating doors that actually creates keys to those doors, and only certain communities get access to that. So I challenge all of us to, again, be bridges that don't have keys that will then bridge all communities to have access to all the information that we're trying to strive for. So thank you.
Member Johnson, please.
Yes, I think I want to add on to what Member Gamboa said, and I think something that has been a part of our discussions a lot behind the scenes has really been about language access as a tool to like breaking down cultural barriers, right? Because that's what really the intent is not that people just read it, but that they actually see themselves in the data. They want to use the tool. And so I think for me, what makes this meaningful is really if we not just put the translations on the websites, but we take the next step of really saying this is important to your community, right? I think a great example of that was I think when the Pathways was announced, it was also shared with Spanish media, right? So like making sure that we're crossing barriers and really coming to people where they are. But I think in that sense, it does make it a bit of the like chicken or the egg, because it's hard to get translation or pay for translations if you don't have the evidence that a community is there. But having something translated is also a trust builder in terms of saying we see you and we care about you. And so I think that will continue to be a little bit of a dilemma that the C2C team has to sort of find how to make this work. But I know that they are really passionate about it and they really care about it. And so I also thought that your answers were really informative to getting to that as well. Like, how do we go past translation to like sort of making sure that it's culturally relevant? And so again, member Gamboa and I have been like really excited about this work, and is really excited to see your responses too on thoughts.
I'm going to jump in here very briefly and kind of go off of what Marisa just mentioned. In the responses, Member Butler had mentioned using culturally relevant examples and stories or visuals that reflect local experiences. So I'm hoping Member Butler or anyone else on the Community Engagement Advisory Board can talk a little bit about this and kind of throw us some ideas on how we could do this.
Certainly, I think that that's one of the echoing what has been already said is meeting people where they're at. And so again, using specific examples, I think that's one of the criticisms of our politics today is that we don't tell stories. We don't bring in authentic voices. We don't show how the information is benefiting the communities that we serve. There continues to be, again, this disconnect between this is how it's going to be. So again, using, I think one of the strategies, using multi-language media, again, using influencers sometimes takes on a dirty connotation, but look where, again, that's what we're talking about, where community is. And so I think just seeing, using, again, the most relevant, present vehicles of communication. Again, so I say, influencers, I say social media, but again, being able to tell the stories of actual beneficiaries and having kind of the success just translate and break down wall strategy. And so again, know that there's an abundance of folks on this Zoom call in this community that has access to people who could tell their stories or would be interested in telling the stories. So kind of humanizing it in a way, demystifying it.
Member Jones, please.
One of the things that I wrote was just making sure that we're able to get this information in the hands of trusted messengers. So whatever language that we're looking at, what does it look like to make sure that community-based organizations who serve that population, churches who serve that population, or even community events. Like I know in San Bernardino, we have like cafecitos that invite a lot of our community members together. So making sure that you have trusted messengers who are sharing that, because sometimes when you just leave it in the institutions or in the higher ed institutions, it never really reaches community. So being able to look at that and make sure that we're able to do that across the state and then across various regions.
Member Lopez, please.
Yeah, I think this, what some of the other members are sharing is really like inspiring me to already leverage what C2C is doing. And for example, the lesson plan challenge, I think it would be a great personal challenge for myself and a lot of the board members to even attempt to do like the lesson plan and how we're saying like elevate stories of the communities we share. And hopefully, depending on what we could create, whether that's infographics, a presentation, or I'm just incorporating data in like my transfer workshop, right, from C2C, and then sharing that with the office to see if you all could take it a step further and help us, with translations and then, share it out even more. For example, I'm a Spanish speaker, but I'm not professional in like translating my own work, right? To then share it with my Spanish speaking students. So even leveraging those resources through you all, once we create an initial infographic presentation that we have to practice what we preach. So we want to engage the communities and ask them to use our website. We probably could be examples of that first. And I think this lesson plan challenge could be a stepping stone for us. And then also with that, definitely attending the upcoming info sessions for it, and also, just having you all remind us how we can meet with you all to get support in maybe creating a lesson plan to just share out with other folks of look what we're doing. We're encouraging you to also participate in the lesson plan challenge. So that's kind of where my brain is going right now. I think I'm in the beginning stages of thinking through it, but I think it would be such a great idea for multiple board members to do that as well.
I will jump in with a curiosity because we have, as you've seen, dug into some of your comments already, but I would really love if you haven't shared something to amplify those because it's taken me quite a while to get through those pages and our members of the public might not have seen that. So just want to acknowledge that. But I do have a specific question. Something that came up in the comments from you all was that when we're thinking about how we should be prioritizing language access or the things that we should be doing. We know we have a limited budget, limited resources, and we want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible. And so that's why we're turning to moving things to like HTML so that we can enable Google Translate and not have everything in a static PDF. And so those are small things that we're doing to try to reach more people quickly. But I'm just curious about your ideas for what we should be prioritizing. I think the language used was tiering our translation priorities. And so I know that when we spoke to members Johnson and Gamboa at the beginning of this endeavor that we engaged with them, and I remember Johnson outright was just saying, if you really want to walk the walk and you want to be accessible, you've got to translate the dashboard. And so that was something that we are actively working on for this fiscal year as we thinking about updating the dashboard. So want to acknowledge that, but I would also love to hear your thoughts about like what are the things like if we are really talking about reaching communities, if we're really talking about walking the walk and being accessible, if there is just something that is like you can absolutely not say that you're doing this work without having these supports in place. If you have any thoughts there, I would love those because again, this is what we're focusing on this year and we want to make sure that we're getting it right.
Member Nguyen, please.
Yeah, thanks for posing that question, Shannon. I also wanted to add on, for example, like the documents on the website that link to, external PDFs like the query builder documents. I think that could also be an area for translation, as well as the office as a whole, because this is an office that is working for Californians, but also represents Californians. How can the office leverage its diversity in order to better take on cultural awareness as well? Since, this is the work of the office.
Member Butler, please.
I guess what's sitting with me is just trying to better understand our various audiences and that, when we talk about like the lesson plan challenge, that could be that our primary audience are young people, college students through their instructors or teachers. And then when we talk about community and engaging community, is the primary audience parents. And so I think just trying to sit with that, because to me, then that means something different. Like what would say parent of a first-gen student or an immigrant parent who is not familiar with anything we're talking about is real. I think remember Gamboa talking about it earlier, like being totally reliant on their young people translating the information. So what actually would we be trying to translate? literally and figuratively to our target audiences. So I'm just sitting with that. So I actually only accidentally raised my hand, but I'm glad that you did that. I did it because that's what I'm sitting with. This like, I mean, we can have various audiences, and I think like to your like, what is it? What do we need? I think for me, it's just to really understand crystal clear who our various audiences are, because then I think that helps me assign some specific kind of activity or action that would be important for that particular audience. A young person receiving information from a teacher is different than a parent who is maybe on the fence or maybe reluctant or maybe afraid, to, pursue this unknown and celebrate it. And certainly they want to encourage it, but still a lot of the anxiety, particularly now, but just in general, around what's ahead. So just trying to understand, and then that helps with the messengers. To me, that helps then assign who the credible messengers are and what types of information needs to be translated via those credible messengers.
Thank you, Member Butler. I don't want to step on Member Gumbo's toes, but I just want to, you sparked something in this conversation as well, because you're asking about how we can, help you all understand who our target audiences are. And I feel like I also heard some synergy with my Member Wen, as far as just, how like the populations that we're serving. And so, or like the types of engagements. And so I know that Mary Kate and her team has done a lot of affinity mapping, where we are looking at the different regions that you all are in, the different types of populations that you serve, so that we can better align you all as we're thinking about different engagements. But from a separate perspective, it feels like it would be helpful to have that mapping be expanded to the audiences. So just acknowledging that. We have an internal document that we use that was created for us when we first started, that I still use to this day. It's member personas, but there's 27 of those personas, right? And so that just goes back to show that when we're thinking about the audiences, that there is a depth and the breadth of Californians and the different diversity and the populations that they're serving, the types of jobs that they work, who they're reaching with. And so I hear that it would be helpful to maybe have some more clarity for you all as we're thinking about these questions, so that you all can better align. And so I just want to say that I hear that, and I think that would be incredibly helpful as we're thinking about distinct initiatives that we're talking about later on, and how we might be able to connect you all to do this work. So it's something that we can all team up with, or team up together on, and then also thinking about who we're targeting. So just appreciation for those two comments back to back, because I think there's a connection that I'm making in this meeting. So thank you. Amber Gambo, I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. I think you hit it on the head there. I wanted to elevate those points as well, and then to thank Member Butler, because I think that's the beauty of this committee, is that the audience for all of us is going to be very different, and it doesn't mean that we all have to try to solve the entire state and the entire demographics. We're working in our own communities, and we all know our best communities. I mean, you individually were selected because you know your community the best. And so I would say, just in our communities though, we do have to listen to the youth, because that's what we're trying to impact. But don't forget that the lessons we learned are best learned from our ancestors and our elders. So make sure that those are at the table before we start trying to run too fast and not understand all voices in those areas.
Thank you, Member Gamboa. I actually think that that's a really beautiful place to leave that first part of the conversation on, and I'm not seeing any other hands raised. I just want to uplift things that we've already heard. I think that this was a great initial synergy. Things are starting, things are percolating, and this is very exciting from my seat. So thank you all for your engagement on part one. What I'd love for us to do next is transition to the second part of this conversation. And so what I'd like to have us do now is focus on accessibility. And I will be passing it over to Angelique Palomar, our Deputy Director of Communications, to begin their part of the presentation.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Good morning, members. My name is Angelique Palomar. I'm the Deputy Director of Communications at Cradle-to-Career. I'll be outlining some of our accessibility efforts, what we've been working on, and what's ahead. So in the next slide is a screenshot of our engagement verticals, fiscal year 2025-26 work plan goals. And I zoomed in on one line item here. It's focused on advancing accessibility because this is a key priority for us this year and in the coming years. Meeting accessibility standards, it does not only comply with the law, but we want to make sure that everyone can access and use C2C's tools and resources without any barriers. And so by prioritizing accessibility, we're expanding our engagement and we are ensuring that our insights reach and serve all of California's diverse communities. So we're building accessibility into each phase of our work. For example, transcripts and closed caption services are available for all public meetings. We're providing translation services in real time for our governing board and advisory board members, since you had mentioned that a little bit ago. And we also provide ASL interpreters for our governing board meetings. We began our internal accessibility training within the engagement vertical so that we're ensuring we're adhering to industry standards. We're also ensuring that all of our public documents are accessible online. All of the PDFs are remediated. We've switched from a PDF agenda to an HTML agenda so that screen readers can easily read what's going on and can read what is on the agenda items. And we're ensuring that all of our website is compliant and meets necessary accessibility standards. Lastly, we've implemented accessibility practice across our social media platforms. So what does this look like in practice? We're including alt text for graphic images, and we're writing in plain language, and that's easy to digest for our audiences. So this is just the beginning of our accessibility efforts, and I'm really looking forward to driving this work with you all. I saw some really interesting feedback as it relates to accessibility, so I'm really excited to dive a little bit deeper with you all because there were some ideas that really got my head spinning. And so I'll pass. Oh, sorry. Next slide. I will talk about some of the partnerships and efforts that we're collaborating with across entities and partners. So part of our focus on advancing accessibility involves engaging in strategic partnerships. So that's within state agencies and other organizations to drive this work forward. We've partnered with the California Department of Rehabilitation to continue learning and strengthening our practices and to inform our own internal policies. So we began this partnership earlier this year, and over the course of just several meetings, we sought clarity mapping what our collaboration means moving forward and what this practice means. So for example, we're developing internal learning sessions through our Lunch and Learn series. This is where C2C invites other experts in various sectors to come have a lunch with us virtually, and this is an internal meeting. And those experts share their experiences and their expertise with Cradle-to-Career. So this helps inform our work. So we're exploring avenues for what it'll look like for Department of Rehab experts to be with C2C and to share their insights more broadly. Lastly, we're thinking through how can we take this partnership to an external audience? So where we can blend data insights and accessibility practice to host our virtual community conversations. So all in all, this partnership with the Department of Rehabilitation has not only been engaging, it's been really, really inspiring to think through how we can create equitable access for Californians across the state. And I noticed some members, jotted down specific examples of other organizations that we can partner with. So I'm really, really looking forward to dive a little bit deeper during our discussion. So in the next slide, we have our discussion questions. So you all had the opportunity to share your responses already. And just wanted to thank you all again for your thoughtful feedback to help make C2C's resources and tools more accessible for California's communities. I'm going to turn it back to Mary Kate, who's going to lead the discussion for today.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. So if there's anybody who just joined us, where we're at is we're going to start digging into deliberation. Members have provided some written feedback on this. Members, Shannon gave us a really good reminder that there's 107 pages here. So let's dig into it together. Just because you wrote it and that brought you clarity, let's voice some things over and get some really good dialogue going. We've set aside about 20 minutes for this deliberation. So we have plenty of time to communicate and let things start flowing. So what member would like to kick us off? And folks too, if you haven't raised your hand, Mr. Jones, Member Jones, I just saw your hand raised. But also if you haven't stepped up yet, and Darrell, we will start with you. Please feel free. We want to hear all the voices here today. So Member Jones, please, followed by Member Nguyen. Thank you.
Awesome, no worries. For me, when I answer this question in the context of my work, accessibility means not that our target audiences are aware of the information and resources available to them, also that they understand how to effectively use the information. Because I feel like sometimes you put something in front of someone and it's like, all right, I did my due diligence. But if they don't know how to effectively use it, or something is still kind of gray, then we still kind of failed at our job at making it accessible. And so other things too is like making sure that we're utilizing plain English. I feel like a lot of times when we're in academia, it's like all these big terms, but it's like, okay, utilize plain English as much as possible, because even when it comes to just regular comprehension on an English level, but then also when it comes to those who want to translate something, plainer the English, the easier it is for me to translate. So how can we make sure that we're doing those things when we are giving information to our communities and making sure that it's accessible?
Member Nguyen, thank you.
Yeah. Member when speaking, thanks, Angelique, for presenting this today. I'm just really curious about 2 points. As a student, I want to think about the student perspective too. How is the office thinking about students, using who want to use this tool, but as we are in a digital divide, who don't have the technology to do so? And my second point of curiosity was, I know that we're facilitating a partnership with DOR, but how I know the office is also making headway as students who may have vision disabilities can also access these services and tools. But how about students with manual or other disabilities as well?
Thank you, Member Nguyen. To your first point, I saw many feedback about the different access points that some various Californians have. Some Californians may not have access to strong internet. Some Californians are in rural communities. They have slow internet. Some Californians, do not have internet literacy to be able to access some of our tools, and those themes were elevated across, I think, almost everyone. So really, really appreciate everyone's feedback on that, because it helps me kind of just think through how can we better meet our audiences where they are, right? Some folks in their feedback, who could we partner with? Somebody I think added the California State Public Library. And that got me thinking, well, there's public libraries all across California. How can we meet this digital divide? Not just for students, not just for folks, who are of different ages, but how can we meet them where they are through public libraries? And so that was just an idea that was just spurred because of your guys' feedback. And the more that we have these discussions, the more that y'all can share your own experiences, what your communities are dealing with, the more that we can have a synergy on, like, crowdsourcing. How can we meet the needs of Californians, of students? How can we meet them where they are? So that's how we're thinking through this. A lot of the feedback really just sparked a lot of inspiration and just thought in me. So thank you so much for bringing that. I know that we're working on a parallel track with you, Member Nguyen, on how can we tap students and help share more information about Cradle to Career and about our resources specifically to student populations at your campus through public engagement events. So I know that that's in the works. And then your second question about DOR, our partnership with DOR, and how we're meeting the needs of various Californians with different disabilities. Well, that's exactly what our partnership is about, is to explore how we can better meet their needs and how we can better meet them where they are. So more to come on that.
I see. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I see two hands. So if we could start with Member Lopez Valdez, and then if we could go to Member Takagi after, please. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and really appreciate this conversation. I'm in Los Angeles, and accessibility really means this is deep to my heart. One of the things that really comes up across this work in the last few years has really been about the importance of printed materials alongside having access online. And so, for example, during the pandemic, everything was living on the internet, but for many of the families that we were working with, we created a paper guide that was over 100 pages, and we mailed it to them. And they were able to sift through it, read and learn more. So I think that's like an important part for this work around accessibility. The other piece too, and I really want to echo Member Jones on this, is a translation piece. I think that when I love me some Google Translate, but I think that, really being able to bring the human side to that, I think it's incredibly important. I know it probably we'll need a budget line for it, but the benefits will be amazing for this work. I also think about this other piece, and I really appreciate talking about public libraries. I would love to encourage us to think about the actual physical accessibility of a public library, especially in those communities that maybe the libraries are not as accessible as we believe they are. For example, in one of the zip codes that I used to work in, the library was about 2 miles away, and it was in a very high. Uh, there was a lot of violence in the community, so students and families were not able to access it. Um, so that's something to think about as we bring up libraries. The other piece that I would offer is thinking about how do we maybe connect, maybe map out, and I'm happy to be part of those conversations around community hubs where internet is part of that hub where families can attend. And as a community hub, there's like a feeling of accessible access to resources, access to internet, and of course to other resources that they can use not only for like internet, but of course for education and beyond.
Hi, Member Takagi speaking. I really wanted to also uplift Member Jones's comment earlier about needing to be cautious with technical terms and removing like unnecessary jargon. There's a lot of misinformation and misinterpretation of data going on right now, and so I think it's really important to be mindful of data literacy, digital literacy, access to, again, that terminology, access to technology to access the data, and also have these terms translated into multiple languages or even just different formats, whether that's using visual aids as well, doing things hybrid as well, to just get the data out to people. And that's why I'm always pushing for a data dictionary as well, so we can have these terms like codified, defined, so we have a consistent term for it as the office. And I also think like terms like persistent rates, pathways, completion rates may lack meaning without clear explanations or relevant examples. I think for the community college system, for example, they have their vision for success to define their outcomes, their graduation rates. But if you don't know that definition or what that means or the context for that, I think it can really easily get lost on people, and then it loses its meaning and its ability to make a larger impact. So I think we really need to have these like conversations about how we're defining these terms. We're not always going to get it perfect, but I think having, a definition will limit a lot of misinterpretation and misinformation out there, especially when more and more students are just questioning their path after high school.
I wanted to just pull on that thread a bit more, Member Takagi. We do have when we released the Student Pathways dashboard in April, the engagement team, data programs team did a really, really wonderful job at trying to think about like how can we guide our users as best as we can through this data. And so what are the different companion materials that we can produce so that folks can understand how to interpret this data, whether it be a video tutorial, whether it be a fact sheet by user persona. And one of the materials was a data dictionary that came that's specific to the Student Pathways dashboard. But what I'm hearing is that maybe we could do a better job at elevating this data dictionary to help and support with data literacy and possibly even translating that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I really appreciate just all the FAQs and the videos that the office has been producing. I think that's been a great way to just get more touch points with users and potential users who may be curious about it but not know how to use the data, or just again like translating the data into then their context and how it applies to them. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, I think if we can get it in more hands and just do more promoting of that, I think that'd be great.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Member, yeah, please.
Hi, yes. Well, it's great, Angelique, that you just spoke, because I was ruminating on the fact sheet piece, and as everyone is speaking and through my own navigation of the website, I'm realizing that the main page or starting page of the website is where I'm personally getting a little bit lost as well. And so when we're talking about using terminology in plain language or having printable resources, I think those are also really important as well. So to echo Member Lopez Valdez's point about printable resources, I think having on the main page of the website these starting guides or fact sheets of how to access, utilize, and sort of a how-to guide or a starting point, and perhaps resources there that could be translated to even more languages than we have currently present, that again are printable and easy to send out in an email or print onto having resource guides too. So I like this term fact sheet and just wanted to echo that.
Thank you so much. We have a media toolkit to help promote our various efforts and initiatives, but it sounds like we could beef that up a little bit more by adding printables for community members to be able to take away and print and have within their communities to help guide data users. So thank you so much.
If I can just pull on this thread about printable materials, because my team knows this, I like carry around a couple of just random things that I've gotten. This is from my daughter's dentist. It's on about like a smile challenge, but it was a really good way of like walking through, kids how to like brush your teeth and like take a selfie and all those kinds of things. And this is from Oakland Public Library, where they kind of walk through their resource and they have QR codes. And so I'm curious about the idea of printed materials, because this is quick. We can mail this to everybody, but it does have QR codes. So you would have to have access to the internet, or you would have to, have a phone or something like that to access that. And so I'm curious if there's a value between having something that's like a long form document, like a 20-page document that people could just have, versus something like this, which is easier to kind of take with you and mail out. If folks have thoughts, this is a genuine curiosity. I would just be curious for what would be useful for the folks that you work with.
Great. I see 2 hands up. So let's start with Member Jones, then Member Johnson, please.
I like the hybrid approach between the two because if I'm being really honest, do not send me a 20-page document to my home. And I have plenty of parents who don't send a 3-page document to my home. It's a bit much. It's over. When you see the mass of it, it is so overwhelming that it doesn't even matter how interested you might be in the material. So just that cross bridge between the two, something very simple. Even I understand the accessibility issue, but that QR code can be very, very helpful. And how it shows up formatted on the phone really, really matters. If it's just still dense with a whole bunch of words, that's not going to work for me either. And it's not going to work for our parents. But just how do you still make it visually appealing, digestible with plain English, even once it does convert you when you scan the QR code? So that's just my initial thought.
I just to add on to what Member Jones just said, I think having a short mailer could be helpful, especially depending on the audience, right? I think some people like still print out their directions, like it's MapQuest, but it's like Google Maps directions, right? So like people do like sort of printed instructionals, and I think people sort of annotate them too. So I think there is something there, but I think with the QR code, what I'm having a bit of a hard time with is because then everyone's going to do that on their phone. And if they get to the dashboard, then they can't, then they hit a wall. And so I would say like my hesitancy with the QR code is just that we also don't want people using that to navigate and then maybe getting excited to get to the pathway just to hit something that they can't now utilize on their phone. And so then it's like, do you lose people along the way because they don't want to look what the link is to then figure it out on their computer? Do they not have a computer? Right. So I would just say until we have like phone access to dashboards, I would sort of stay away from the QR codes just because I also don't want people to then be dissuaded, right, to hit a point in the process where then they're disappointed because they can't see it all the way through.
Member Gamble, please.
And I'd like to again echo and elevate Member Jones and Member Johnson's comments that I think it's really good that we do bridge all the different areas, but also keep in mind, let's make sure that we add a website, a direct, simple website that they can log into, and then also a phone number if there's even just to have an audio recording there, but something that they can again connect on, because you don't want them to be frustrated of not being able to get the information they're looking for if we send that out. Plus, it's also a lot cheaper if you do a one, little type of thing versus 20 pages.
I'm just gonna jump in real quick. Thank you all for your feedback. One thing that I wanted to make sure that we talked about here, because really wanting to gather ideas on this, is this idea of tracking our success. Like, what does success look like? And a lot of themes in your guys' feedback talked about, qualitative versus quantitative, having a mixture of both. And I'm just curious if anyone could voice over, what does the qualitative feedback look like? What does success look like? Beyond the traditional metrics of, page visits, event attendees.
Member Chicago, please.
Hi, Member Takagi speaking. I would love to have students reflect on their experiences using the data dashboard. I don't know if we're necessarily there yet, so maybe starting out with like the lesson plan challenge and getting kind of feedback from practitioners, high school counselors, academic advisors, admissions officers, like just different people in that space and kind of getting their feedback on it might be lower lower hanging fruit or something like less strenuous to get. Um, just as we're starting out, building out these tools, getting kind of their feedback, and also just getting like, what does this data mean to them? Like, what were they able to do? What deliverables were they able to produce? Were they able to have a really engaging conversation with a student about the value of higher education as well? Did this empower them to have these conversations, to have these tools accessible? I'd also love to hear from the research community once, again, we have more tools and data built out. How are they leveraging the data? What are they doing? I know that's something we've talked about in the past, but I think getting just a quick quote from them about how this tool has helped them in their career and then to have these conversations. I know for me, like having these conversations with students, having the data accessible to be able to point to that, because sometimes anecdotal evidence isn't enough. So having data to be like, hey, if you earn this degree, this is how much you'll earn, this is your lifetime earnings. Some students really need to see that and really need to see the numbers. So I think if we could start there and then eventually branch out to students and having their experience, I'd love to uplift that as well.
Okay, I am hearing a bit of a pause. And that actually works out perfectly with timing. So if folks are feeling ready, but I want to check in with C2C staff if we have any other curiosities or if we're feeling comfortable with moving to section 3. Okay, brilliant. So again, members, thank you. That was wonderful. That was a treasure trove of information. My tongue is getting tied. So thank you for your engagement there. We're going to move on to our third and final section of this agenda item, and that's training and outreach. And Shannon Serrato, our Director of Engagement, will begin their presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about training and outreach. That's what we're going to close with today. Next slide, please. So with the release of C2C's analytical tools earlier this year, the engagement team is moving away, our focus away from the build of the tools to their usage, which we've all been talking about today. So we are very much in alignment with that. But this means that we're now concentrating on developing and implementing data literacy programs tailored to the diverse needs of individuals across California. So on this screen, you'll see the engagement section of C2C's current strategic plan, which includes the problem statement faced by the engagement team and the goal to solve it, which is really rooted in equitable access to the data for all types of users. So for accessibility purposes, I'll read this out loud. The problem: communities lack equitable access to usable information and data to address their priorities. And the proposed goal: users will need different types of information when accessing the data system, and Cradle-to-Career will engage with communities to listen to and identify their information needs through our user-centered design work, community engagement activities, and training and outreach for the data systems tools. So to that end, the advancement of data literacy, the ability to read, understand, analyze, and communicate data to make informed decisions and solve problems, is a crucial aspect of our work. We really mean it, and I'm sure you can feel it today, that we are committed to making the data system equitable for all Californians, regardless of their background or experience with data, which means that we've got our work cut out for us. So following the launch of the Student Pathways data story this spring, the overwhelming responses you've heard was that folks really want to learn how to best engage with the dashboards and how to bring the data back to their communities. So we are actively connecting and engaging with data literacy experts across the country. In the past 3 months alone, we've met with data literacy specialists in Indiana and Connecticut. We've engaged with our AISP Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy at Penn cohort, and we participated in the data literacy for public servants training organized by the Partnership for Public Service this summer to learn about best practices for service delivery. It was really wonderful to be in community with so many like-minded folks across the country, and those engagements not only furthered our learnings, but reinforced the office's commitment to connecting with Californians to tailor and target information that matters to them. And those conversations contributed to the development of the suite of planned data literacy efforts that we'll be discussing. This work is ever evolving, and honestly, it's never ending, but in the best way possible. So we're going to focus on the work that we've got ahead of us for FY 25-26, which includes the design and development of C2C's data walks and data academies, our very first lesson plan challenge that you've all heard about and discussed already, and then the facilitation and coordination of a community of practice. Okay, so we're going to first dive into C2C's planned data and literacy initiative, a series of data walks that will offer customized information tailored to audiences, enabling students to see themselves in the data, to interpret the data, and to answer the questions that matter most to them and their communities. We've discussed data walks a little bit in the past, but as a refresher or an introduction for our new members, C2C will collaborate with trusted messengers to organize interactive and in-depth engagements with communities regarding the student pathways data story. Data walks will focus on data from specific regions or communities, enabling attendees to participate in real-time analysis to generate insights and actionable information. This fiscal year, the office plans to convene 3 to 5 data walks across the state, either in person, virtually, or in a hybrid fashion, which we will determine in part with our discussion with you all today. So first, and excitingly, we have an opportunity to engage with key policymakers in the Los Angeles County area for a potential data walk at the end of 2025. So we're in the midst of those discussions, so stay tuned for that. But we are really hoping to determine whether we can hold our first data walk by the end of this calendar year. So I want to use this opportunity to invite you all to partner with us to get those wheels turning about your capacity to support this effort this year, especially if you're in Southern California. And then also to share the event with your network so that we can really combine forces in Los Angeles. The LA Data Walk is our first planned engagement, but we have other irons on the fire as well. We are tentatively planning a data walk in the Bay Area. We're hoping to engage students in Oakland and in the Bay Area. So that'll be really exciting to this point about actually hearing how students are engaging with and using the dashboards. And we would also love to engage communities in San Diego, the San Joaquin Valley, and Northern California regions this fiscal year. Those areas may seem familiar if you've been in conversations with us in the past. This is a follow-up on our planned in-person community conversations that we began in 2024. We have not yet been in those regions specifically to do this work. And so we're really, really excited to think about how we might be able to engage those communities this upcoming year. So if you're connected to any of those areas or would like to partner with us for a data walk, please let us know. And additionally, because I know we have so many people all across California, I want to say out loud that this is not the end all be all. If you are in an area outside of those named communities and would love to have a data walk with us, we are open to doing it. We know that we've got a depth and breadth of folks in Inland Empire, Northern California, in the Merced, Modesto area. So just thinking about how we might be able to partner or have many people partner to create effective data walks is something that we're really interested in partnering with you all. So I will save that part for the discussion portion that we'll have shortly, but we hope you consider supporting a data walk this year. Next slide, please. So while our data walks will foster real-time collaboration and exploration with our data users, you've heard our C2C team is small. We are 27 people, and our ability to engage with folks across the state is really limited by the office's bandwidth and our budget. So we plan to meet other users where they are by delivering customized and scalable trainings, webinars, and on-demand resources. As part of the insights gained from our data walks, outputs from the events will include artifacts that tell a story of how communities engaged with their data, such as event kits and case studies that will provide a roadmap for others to replicate and scale similar data engagement efforts, serving as the foundation for the on-demand resources that we're calling C2C's data academies. But while the data walks are a very specific type of engagement, data academies will be a suite of data literacy resources. So first on the list is the development of the trainer model, which CEA members have surfaced for us in the past and is also on the docket for discussion today as a way to expand our scope and reach. In this first iteration, the content provided will be similar to the data walks, featuring customized presentation templates and materials. However, the engagement itself could be delivered by those trained by the office, not C2C staff, to spread the word of C2C and deepen community engagement with trusted messengers. Additionally, those outputs, templates, one-pagers, and on-demand videos will be packaged and tailored for policymakers across the state as they engage with their constituents around the data and the insights provided for their communities. We've heard directly from policymakers that they're really hoping to plug and play, being able to plug in information for their communities and provide that to their constituents. And so we're hoping that we can help those folks meet that need this year. And then finally, C2C is also charged with the advancement of data literacy beyond our tools. So future state, the office will deliver programming and connect with California state workers via existing platforms such as CalLearns to lean heavily on the work that we've been doing around badges and certification to really advance data literacy for all Californians in their different areas of work. So that's really, really exciting. Okay. So, lesson plan challenge. You heard from Marianne earlier today about the C2C lesson plan challenge, and we've discussed it at length. But this is really a way to have folks really engage with enabling students and educators to interpret data and education and career pathways, data and insights, build data literacy skills while centering student experience and exploring data. Challenge participants will receive a certificate of participation. They'll also get this official Pathfinder badge that they can add to their LinkedIn profile and elsewhere and be featured on the C2C website. The winners will also get the opportunity to share their winning plan with education leaders in Sacramento, other events across the state, and engage with other Pathfinders throughout California. As you've heard, the challenge kicked off at the end of last month with an accompanying community conversation and will run through March of 2026. But because the challenge has such a long runway, we hope to form partnerships and engage educators on an ongoing basis. And so we're holding information sessions starting next month through the early part of 2026 to provide equitable access to that information, offering a space for meaningful conversations, connection with the office and other Pathfinders so that they can be kind of brought into the fold regardless of when they first learned about the challenge. So this is where you all come in. Just as an update, this is who we've reached out to so far. We've been in conversation with the California Federation of Teachers, the California Teachers Association, and the California Department of Education to make sure that they are aware of this initiative, can share the challenge with their members, and then ideally partner with us as we think about broad and deep engagement with educators. We've tapped their expertise, providing space for them to review and provide feedback on materials such as a lesson plan, template, and rubric. And I also, again, want to highlight this is a key opportunity for members to support this initiative. We would love your support, again, in amplifying the lesson plan challenge broadly, as well as the informational sessions, the first of which is scheduled for November 6th, and then in January or February of next year. And again, we also need help grading those lesson plans. So there is a set rubric and a grading criteria for the lesson plans, and we plan to have grading happen on a rolling basis. So this is the perfect opportunity for you to get involved as your schedule allows. So finally, I want to share an example from the San Diego County Office of Education that you see on this slide. They've created an entire page on their website promoting the lesson plan challenge. We're very grateful for that. And we plan to partner with San Diego County Office of Education to amplify the challenge more broadly. So there's a depth and the breadth of what you can do, but we were really encouraged to see this engagement with San Diego County Office of Education. And finally, this brings me to my last discussion item for today, a conversation around communities of practice. When asked how we can enable more users to deeply and meaningfully engage with C2C's analytical tools, we heard directly from you all that community members could benefit from a shared community-driven initiative facilitated by C2C that would empower users interested in examining a particular topic or a set of issues to analyze existing data and discuss those findings with one another, essentially building a community of folks. You may be the only person in your district or the only person in your team who focuses on data, but the idea is linking up with other folks who are doing this work to provide a broader community throughout the state was of interest. As I said, this was raised during this year's Joint Advisory Board meeting, but this work also builds upon a proposal that we received last year on data literacy outreach. So we know that there's an appetite for folks to engage with other users who are using the data in their work. So as part of our commitment to advanced data literacy, we're exploring the potential for a community of practice where users can connect with like-minded individuals who are doing this work. A key goal would be to enable conversations with and develop trust amongst members to share skills and knowledge with each other as it relates to engaging with and analyzing data. But ultimately, we want to build a space that becomes community-led and community-driven. Discussions and topics would be raised and facilitated by community of practice members. And this will also allow us to better understand the topics that folks are grappling with and how to truly assess how the data are being accessed by communities. So at a community of conversation this summer, we asked attendees about their interest in exploring a community of practice, and we had about 15 people that day express interest in this effort. So we know that the appetite is there, and we're excited to potentially act as connectors. So in just a few short moments, I'm going to turn to you for your thoughts about how we might successfully facilitate a community of practice. That was a lot. There's a lot of thoughts in there. There's a lot of things that I would love to hear from you all. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the discussion you heard today. Prior to today's meeting, members had the opportunity to answer the following questions on training and outreach. And I know that there are a lot, and maybe our time is becoming limited. I think we have maybe 15 minutes for this section. And so I'm excited to hear more from you all today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. But I'm now going to hand it back over to Mary Kate Cruz-Jones to lead member deliberation.
Yes, perfect. And Shannon Serrato said that very well. So this is the last part. We'll see how we do in about 15, and members can start raising their hand now. We'd love to hear from you. And also for folks on the line, if you're just joining us, please see our website for where members have provided their written thoughts. But as always, we're hoping members unpack that with us now verbally.
If it's helpful, I know that there's a couple of items. I let you go, Adam, member Gottlieb, and then I will continue.
You
Because I don't want
can go. You can go.
What I was going to say is maybe it's helpful to break down some of these things. The discussion questions are no longer on the screen, and so I want to make sure that we are kind of following. So maybe if we can talk about, member Gottlieb, what were you going to talk about? We can start with whatever.
I was going to talk about communities of practice. I love communities of practice. I know how difficult they are to manage and to and upkeep on communities of practice, and especially in a situation like this where there's so much available, right, to talk about in community practice. You know, it was, one topic one month could be drastically different from a topic the next month, and getting the same people to go consistently to actually form a community and keep it up because of the breadth of this work can be incredibly difficult for that reason, which gives me some trepidation, and I know it would require probably more staffing from the office. So I just want to say that, and yes, a secondary to that, one of the things I think I wrote to an extent in my response in this part is that there are communities across the state that can and should be leveraged to this work. I think the one I mentioned and there was the K16 collaboratives, which, there are 13 across the state. They were mandated by the state to work with C2C as a part of the grant program, and we just secured a grant extension for the work. So now we have longer to do the work until 2028 to formalize certain things, including our data use and our data reporting to the state, especially as the state is looking at how to better support collaboratives like that, better support collaboratives like the Jobs First initiatives, looking outside of the current reporting structures and the current management structures and into more dynamic and sustainable ways. So as I think about the communities of practice, and I think about those that already exist or those that might have a particular group that is ready to either pilot or ready to take on a very specific topic. I would just encourage the office to do that. I lead a K16 collaborative in LA, so I'm more than happy to make those connections with collaborative leaders across the state or in LA, but whatever it might be. I just think that the tailoring is crucial.
Member Jones.
Some of the things that have kind of came to mind when you asked about the best practices for communities of practice and those that I've been in, it seems like those that haven't done too well didn't articulate like a clear goal as to why we were all here and how we can all work together. And then when we're in that space, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to feel like a waste of meeting. But being able to have that, I think also something that worked out really, really well for those that did work out good was kind of having some focus areas where people feel like this is kind of my niche that I can really focus on. This is something that I mastered in. And being able to break out into committees that focus on those different niches that still go to the common goal, of course. So giving room for those spaces and then also finding ways to cross collab between those spaces because it's like, okay, I'm in this certain focus area where I'm learning about my niche and I'm able to exchange best practices when it relates to that, but then also coming back to the main space and finding some good cross collaboration best practices as well. So finding a nice balance between the two. And then the last thing I would say is just really being key on who is representing the organization that is coming to the best communities of practice space. Sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, you sent the director. You probably could have sent someone who's a little bit more hands-on. That would have been better for this space. So you know what I'm saying? So just really being key about who is representing the org for the best communities of practice so it could just kind of flow most efficiently.
Hi, Member Takagi speaking. I just really want to hone in on the point of like the objective of the community of practice. I think it's really important to set those intentions early on. So again, we're getting the right people in these meetings, in these spaces, that we're achieving the goals that we need to do, making sure that C2C is a neutral office. So I think leading with that as well. Again, what are the outcomes? What are the objectives? So I think really as an office, I think setting those, we can definitely inform that as well. But I think having those objectives will be really critical. And then I also noted in my notes, meeting semi-regularly, that could be every quarter, that could be every month. But I think having like a commitment, almost like a commitment to this work, whether that's meeting every month or once a quarter, to move this work forward and to produce some artifacts that the office can then show off. So again, where there's some meaning as a result of having all of these meetings, I think it would be really important. So that, and then if there's ways to collaborate with other offices just for capacity as well, I think that we should take that on as well.
Okay, I don't want to be too heavy-handed. I really want y'all to feel free to take the meeting where you will, but I do have some curiosities specifically around data walks, because as I mentioned, we do have a commitment to convening 3 to 5 data walks by the end of this fiscal year, so June 2026. And so I've named a few places that we will already be. I would love to hear about those locations and how we might be able to support or collaborate with one another. But I just have a broader question just about accessibility, because travel is allowed, but we are constrained, and so we are talking about in person, right? Being able, because there's digital divides and having people show up and all of those things. I would love to be able to go up to Klamath and do all of the things, but maybe we can't do that. Or, do we want to have things that are online where more people can access that? Is that something that would be useful if you're thinking about real-time engagement and having folks bounce ideas off of each other? Is that the most best use of our time, knowing that we can get more people on the line, but is the engagement the same amount of engagement that we would have rather than in person, or a hybrid functionality where we could maybe have C2C staff be present, virtually, but the actual convening would be most folks in the area, so that we could, kind of facilitate the discussion, but meeting people semi where they are. And so I just have a genuine curiosity about folks' thoughts there, because we really understand that we need to be coming to the communities and we need to be engaging with the communities. And so I'm just curious about how you all see that working out. What would be an ideal state for you?
Jones, please.
I would say when I first started thinking about it, hybrid was a thing that came to mind for me. Understanding the constraints of the office, obviously, with all that travel, but still realizing that in person always yields the best result. So, how can I host an in-person event and you are on the Zoom screen articulating all the different data pieces? I think would be most efficient. Followed up with that, I have a question because we have a few events at my organization coming up where I'm thinking about plugging that in. How much time would be necessary for a data walk?
Planning or the actual event itself?
Actual event itself.
We are envisioning an hour to an hour and a half, so 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes for a data walk.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Okay, thank you.
Member Maestas. Member Maestas, please.
Definitely. So I'm also open to discussing or talking the pros and cons of doing something hybrid up in the northern part of the state. Here on the reservation, we have a very large school district here that serves a lot of this rural communities, tribal communities. But we also have, close access to facilities that are out on the coast, near Cal Poly Humboldt, the Eureka Arcata area. And I think just it's going to be very difficult when we talk about the other communities, right, that we want to involve in, is making sure that if we're targeting teachers and educators, of aligning those, spring breaks and time off as best as we can, or if we're talking parents, right, or students. But definitely I'm open to doing something hybrid, possibly being there on site and you're doing virtual with, the rest of the CTC staff and other members that might not be able to make it. So I'm very open and interested to coordinating that.
Member Gonzalez, please.
Similar to that on that theme, I know that Member Jones and I are both in the Inland Empire and thinking about ways that we could cross collaborate. I know that that's been a huge topic of conversation. We know we've also talked about how, even if us having like an understanding of geographically where we're at and being able to tag team. I know for myself, I'm in the Inland Empire and I know that you shared with that's a potential spot to want to hit in after the four that you have planned, and committing myself. And I know that you have a strong partnership with San Diego County Office of Education, and I know that well, I would assume that our office, that the Riverside County Office of Education would be very supportive in that sense, and also to be able to provide a space. It's in Central Riverside, provides all the Zoom capabilities, a welcoming space, parking, all that good stuff. And then just another question I had, or more of a comment in regards to, as we think about trying to meet the needs of the community, but also, have successful events. And what I found in my work in community engagement is that, especially here in the Coachella Valley, it's a largely Spanish-speaking community, farm working community. And I think oftentimes we're like, oh, we posted on LinkedIn, we put on a flyer, it's on a QR code. We kind of did our common checkbox of this is quote unquote what communication is. And I know it's a huge lift and I know that there's certain physical constraints, but being on the ground, and I just want to reiterate, that is just so important. And obviously, thank you for your guys' commitment, right? I know it's a huge hill to have to climb in order to, plan and be everywhere and get to certain places. But I think it's a commitment on your guys' end and our end, right? That or the organization's end that, they really want community members to be informed and use this tool. And just any way that we could be supportive to continue to uplift the importance of being in physical spaces, I think is going to be important, because what I have found is when we meet people where they're already at, it's a good spot. I mean, well-known trusted spaces, especially when we're at too. I think there's a lot of communities, especially as we think about our migrant families, especially here in the Coachella Valley. You know, if I had an event at some place maybe they don't feel comfortable at, but if I went to the local, you know, community center that they're comfortable with, that they already take their students or their children to, and just being reminded of that. And obviously that's the beauty of our board, is that we all know our communities, and we be able to bring that skill set and knowledge as well to the conversation.
Thank you. So just a quick point of order. I think Member Lopez is off camera, and I believe Member Gottlieb will be off camera, just so you might, folks of the public or fellow colleagues, see folks dipping in and out, off camera and then off camera. I see two hands, so let's go with Member Rasso and then Member Gamboa. And probably by the time we finish with both of these comments, we might be concluding this conversation. Please, Member.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Kate. And yeah, thank you to Shannon. I know we're a little at time, so I'll be really brief. And honestly, to Natalia's point, our member Gonzalez's point, you know, I had something really similar to expressed along the lines of meeting our communities where they're at. I think to this extent that I serve in student facing spaces, a lot of kind of the dynamic, and maybe Shannon, you can give me insights here, like offline, or we can huddle after the meeting, is how are we kind of tapping into our student networks? A lot of, you know, I work a lot of weekends and a lot of evenings trying to touch point with students as they have, you know, a heavy 9 to 5 with their schedules and working and in classes. But at the statewide level, there's a lot of access points when it comes to agendizing some of you know, the work you all are doing and showcasing that through community engagement and student engagement. Say, for example, at our board meetings, we have student board meetings for all 3 segments of higher ed. And a lot of what I do is I integrate a lot of reports and updates in my line of work. I'd be really interested partnering and trying to coordinate getting this type of information and how it's useful and manageable for student leaders in the work that they're doing. And then also likewise in a lot of affordability spaces, I think to the point that this data system has a lot of opportunity to manage and sift through metrics for overarching student success and where populations are, where the barriers are. A lot of the affordability spaces I serve in our financial aid implementation work group with CSAC. How are we walking through those practitioners, how to leverage some of the metrics that they would like to see from the dashboard in the work that they're doing in college access, financial aid completion, and things like that. So I think those are the 2 value points I see a lot of opportunity in, and would love your feedback, Shannon, when you have a chance.
Member Gamboa.
Thank you. Member Russell, thank you very much for elevating that as well. I wanted to stress the fact that, you know, if we do these community engagements, probably think outside the 8 to 5 realm, because depending on the communities you're trying to reach, and then also be flexible to a Saturday, Sunday opportunity. And if we're going to make this investment, that we think about a 3-year plan investment of going back to those communities, because I don't want to go up to, you know, to our Humboldt areas or to our Central Valley, because then they're going to feel like, oh, it's only a teaser. Like, we need to have consistency in those communities as well. And then as we continue to grow in those communities, that each one of those meetings be ended with who else needs to be at this table or at this meeting, so that by year 3, you're, you know, have exponentially grown those communities as well and empower them to continue to be leaders in those areas with our data.
Thank you. Okay, I want to look to C2C staff and see if there's any other threads that we want to pull on, curiosities.
I mean, I have so many threads and curiosities, but respectful of time, I will follow up. I do appreciate, Member Rosso, your connections and just everybody. Truly, I have just, if you see me looking off screen, I just have a wall of text that I've been taking notes, and it's just really encouraging. This is such a rich discussion. I just appreciate your thoughts, the things that you're surfacing, things that we thought about, things that we haven't thought about that I really want to make sure that we're following up with. And so, to this point about commitments to you all, the point of today is that I want to make sure that we can begin mapping, thinking about where we are going to be, so that to this point, Member Maesta said, if you were thinking about reaching teachers, that we were reaching out to their, when they're on vacation or when they have like a break, right? And so I can say, okay, well, if we're going to be engaging with folks in Northern State in March, maybe we need to be doing something somewhere else in a different time. And so just thinking about where folks are and the schedules that align is something that I'm going to be working through. And so just know that I will be coming back to you sooner rather than later to begin those conversations, because I really want to make sure that we are doing those things. And just a deep appreciation to Member Gamboa for you saying this. We do not want to helicopter in. We do not want to just see one and done. Well, we've checked this box and that's what we're going to do. This is just the beginning of those conversations. We've had conversations in the past. We will be going back to some of those communities, but we want to expand our scope and depth and breadth. And so this is a really, really great conversation, a beginning conversation. And just, again, I just want to thank you all for taking the time. Written comments, verbal comments today. It is so helpful. And you guys are doing amazing work. And we just really appreciate your commitment to doing the work with us as advisory board members. So Member Gonzalez, I see your hand is raised.
Just really quickly, if there's a way that we could get those dates that are already scheduled for the data walks, just so that we know and that we could share, that would be great. I know calendars get crazy.
Absolutely. I'm trying to do like a general map and then start plugging into folks so I can say, okay, well, if we want to do something in the Inland Empire, and Natalia's like, I'm actually out of the country for the next 3 weeks, right? Like we have some general sense of where folks are and how we can do that. So I'm trying to start bucketing things, and I will follow up with you all just so that we can start thinking about how we can actually get this done this year.
Wonderful. And repurposing what Member Gamboa just said, this is a teaser that hopefully members enjoy, and much, much, much work to come. And, we're in partnership. So I'm looking forward to all of this. All right, I want to acknowledge that we're about 6 minutes behind schedule, and I'm sure folks could use a 10-minute break. So let's pause here, and we'll see folks back at 12:36. We will be starting on time because, as I just mentioned, we're about 6 minutes behind. So see y'all in 10. Thank you. And now we have that recording in progress. Thank you so much. So welcome back. We will now move on to agenda item 6, presentation and discussion of the 2025 Cradle-to-Career Community Engagement Advisory Board proposal process. I will be presenting this agenda item along with Alexandra Losinov, the Senior Project Manager, Economic Mobility, Post-Secondary and Workforce Systems from West Ed, as well as Dr. Christopher J. Nellam, our Governing Board Liaison to the Community Engagement Advisory Board. So to begin this item, I would love it if Member Nellam would help us out by kicking it off, and you will hear Member Nellam speak. Member Nellam, I can see that your talking is permitted, so whenever you'd like to begin.
Okay, did that unmute, Mary Kate?
Yes, you're wonderful. We could hear you.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize, I'm only on audio. I am traveling, and we learned that Zoom doesn't allow connections from where I am, but I'm glad to have been listening and joining you via audio. So thank you again to Mary Kate. As was shared, my name is Chris Nellam, and I serve as your liaison from the governing board. And I'm just going to walk us through a couple slides to remind us of the proposal process. So as folks will remember, statute defines the responsibility of the Community Engagement Advisory Board as examining whether the managing entity, the C2C office, is creating strong feedback loops with data users. Is it supporting evidence-based decision-making and analytical capacity? And then finally, whether or not the C2C team is ensuring equitable access to actionable information. According to the governance manual, the Community Engagement Advisory Board can address significant gaps via the proposal process by recommending one of several options. One can recommend ways to improve those feedback loops with data users and ensure equitable access to actionable information. Two, advisory board members might recommend professional development or technical assistance models that foster evidence-based decision-making that help to strengthen analytical capacity with available data tools. And then finally, to enable end users to better understand factors that influence outcomes. A third set of things members might recommend are communication structures that ensure a broad range of Californians know about and are using the data tools. And then finally, members might recommend additional tools that address strategic objectives for the data system. And the governance manual also specifies how this proposal process works in practice. As you can see on the graphic on this slide, the annual cycle is organized into 4 key phases, each with specific milestones that help to guide the advisory board's work throughout the year. You will see in May on the slide, that in May, the proposal process reaches its culmination as 2 advisory board members and the governing board liaison to the Community Engagement Advisory Board, myself, will present a report to the governing board. So that will happen in May. And then on the next slide, you will see a quick summary of key developments in the proposal process. So since we met on July 11th at the joint advisory board meeting, Community Engagement Advisory Board members had the opportunity to either submit their own proposal form or submit a joint proposal with no more than 5 advisory board members, or refine a proposal that was submitted from a previous year. As you know, all of the proposals were due to the office on Friday, September 12th. And on the next slide, you will see that this year, the proposal process resulted in the office receiving 2 proposals from this advisory board, as shown on the slide. Each proposal is included in today's staff report and is also available in the proposal repository on the C2C website. And so at this time, I will turn it back over to Mary Kate Cruz-Jones, who will continue our presentation on the next slide.
Fantastic. Thank you, Member Nillum. And I see that we're there. Brilliant. So I would like to start us off by grounding members in what to expect at today's meeting. So this agenda item is broken up into 3 distinct sections. After this high-level overview, we will go into member proposal presentations. So proposal presentations are 10 minutes each, and this includes time for both the presentation and ideally member questions. But the folks that are presenting will dictate how much time we have and what this looks like. During these presentations, members will notice that Zoom timer that we talked about earlier. So this is a tool that will help us stay on time. And after all members have presented their proposals, we'll open it up for a public comment section. So following public comment, members will have an opportunity to engage in member deliberation. And that section will be facilitated by Alexandra Losinoff from West Ed, who I had introduced at the top of this agenda item. Today's member deliberation will be divided into 2 sections focused on how proposals complement and contrast, and which proposals are more promising for advancing C2C's ability to provide actionable information. I would like to take a second, fabulous, to talk about this member proposal workbook, because this is the first time that we've used this tool. So first off, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez on my team, who did a fantastic job getting this together for members. Hopefully you all found it as helpful as we believe it is. This tool was to help support members in preparing for deliberation. The office provided members with 2 key resources. So the first resource was the proposal rubric. Y'all can remember that from March, and that defines the criteria for strong recommendations. And then the other thing was this member proposal workbook that is notated on the slide here. And that was to help members in organizing their thoughts and reflect on the key questions that y'all will be discussing during the deliberation. So the workbook has 3 key sections: individual proposal overview, as well as reflections, the Venn diagram comparison chart, and then that big picture reflection chart. So today's 2-part member deliberation, members are expected to share their reflections from the workbook. The first part of the deliberation will focus on addressing the questions in the Venn diagram comparison chart. And then the second part of member deliberation will focus on addressing the questions in the big picture reflection chart. And ultimately, the goal of today's member deliberation is to inform the proposal report that will be presented at the Spring Community Engagement Advisory Board meeting, as Member Nellam just discussed with you all, and then ultimately to go to the governing board. So next steps. Following today's meeting, the office will conduct high-level light touch feasibility studies and provide write-ups for the member proposals received. So there will be 2 light touch feasibility studies presented to you all in the spring. And then also the office will be looking for 2 volunteers. And now this is really important, folks. We're looking for 2 volunteers to work on, with Member Nellam, drafting a report that will include components like linking the proposals, a summary of today's discussion, and then the light touch feasibility study write-ups. So if you're interested in being considered as one of these 2 people, please submit your statement of interest to me no later than Friday, November 21st. Obviously, if I get that earlier, I'd love it. I want to emphasize here that should we not receive 2 volunteers to draft the report, there will be no proposal report that's presented and discussed at the April 8th meeting or at the May 20th governing board meeting. So that's a really important part. So I'm going to have members sit with this one more time. I'm looking for 2 volunteers, folks that are already submitted a proposal. They're going to be working on light touch. So there's 13 other members that can raise their hands, and I'm hoping somebody does. And then remember that your juicy deliberations today are what feeds into this report. I think that that's really important framing as we go into the next section. Hearing no questions, comments, concerns from folks, we could just jump right into the work. And I'd love to ask members Gamboa and Takagi to take it from here. And if y'all can let me know that you're ready, I can start your timer.
I believe we are ready.
Brilliant. Okay, let's get this started.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you all for hanging in there with us. It's been exciting to be with all of you. And I think our proposal kind of meshes really well with the comments and everything that we've been having all morning. So we're excited to bring this to you. Our presentation or our proposal is Cradle-to-Career, Train the Trainer, Ambassador model. So how do we leverage the opportunities of what we have and what we're doing to create greater impact, as we've been sharing all morning? So myself and Dr. Alex Takagi here have put this together for you and hope to have some good conversation. So next slide. So what we're looking at here is to look at how do we reflect and able to translate the information to one of the biggest states in the country, right? Because we have, and we're very blessed to have so many communities and so many different just opportunities across the state, whether we're talking all the way down to Inland Empire to, San Diego Coast to Silicon Valley, all the way to Humboldt. All of our communities need this information, and it's vital to get the representation and information across properly. So that's something that we were trying to figure out. How do we capitalize on that? And then also looking at all of our membership. We have incredible people on this committee. And so how do we take those opportunities and build off of them so that we can take the best of what we all bring together and then expand those opportunities by leveraging the data literacy that we're also passionate about, and making sure that while we're educating our communities, that everybody who's there is able to come onto our websites and leverage everything without feeling intimidated, no matter where they're coming from or what are their gaps or non-gaps to the data that we're trying to relay here. So that hopefully we can then make some changes, and changes that we've also seen in those comments and answers that we were responding to earlier, which is like, how do we take just simply action and what we have and put it into the resources in the hands of people to make impact? And I think that's where data then really is effective, so that we can see, how they're leveraging it in their own boards or in their own communities or town halls to actually say, hey, this matters because of this. And that's what we want to do, is expand the access and the opportunities to our conversations here. Next slide. You'll see that for us, the big thing is, how do we train all these trainers knowing that we have limited resources? And I think the best way to do that is through leveraging feedback models, which is we take all of our local practitioners who know the best knowledge, who build the trust that we were talking about earlier. I think Member Jones and Member Butler, you all said, hey, you need to make sure that you have the right people in the room so that people can trust what you're trying to deliver. And I 100% resonate with that, saying that yes, it does matter who's there, who's available, and how you show up to these meetings, because we don't need just executives. We need the people who are really understanding the data, the trenches, who are going to be there with the people to make the impact. We also want to know and share that we all understand that California diverse populations are so big, so vast, so unique. And I think those unique aspects bring the specialty of this data alive. And that's what we want to see. So what we want to see in the next slide is to show you all the data that we evaluated from each one of our team members, which is being able to see that we all have impacts in different regions and different opportunities. So there's a lot of us here, and we can continue to expand with our new members, but finding these areas where we can create the biggest impact shows us right away where maybe some of these walking data tours community tours that we're going to be doing already can already be jumped on and made feasible for all of us. Next slide. You'll see now the fact that all of us, which is good, are comfortable with the data and the interpretation of it. But remember that numbers are one thing and stories are another. And if we can combine both of those, that's where we make the biggest impact. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Takagi to finish off the rest of the presentation.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Dr. Gamboa. I really just wanted to highlight here the alignment with other C2C proposals. Is really, this proposal in particular, I really feel like is an extension of the conversation that we've been having earlier today, is about being intentional and strategic with our community outreach and informing community members of the data and the tools available. One proposal that this really expands on is Member Gottlieb's proposal last year on the expansion of content-based community conversations. So where members would co-host online or in-person conversations with their networks to expand statewide reach. And then my proposal last year as well, to embed data literacy tools and resources into communications to really equip stakeholders, students, practitioners with the right language to talk about the C2C data and the tools, just because it can become very vague. And again, defining these terms and making sure it actually has meaning for them. And so both conversations really operationalize the train to trainer model by preparing members as C2C ambassadors and really lead to tailored community conversations that expand our reach across the state. Next slide, please. And then I just really wanted to spend just a minute on this. It's really phased out. I know one of the questions that we got was sustainability. What does this look like in practice? I really would want to spend the next year establishing a work group and standardizing practices. I personally feel semi-confident talking about Cradle-to-Career, what it does, our mission and values, what this looks like in practice, the promise of the tools, but I also think that there's not a standardized form of how to work with the media, how to work with members of our community to really talk talk about Cradle to Career and also just its impact on their lives. And we don't know what we don't know. And so this is really just standardizing practices. How do we talk about this in our community? What are the best practices to engagement? What does success look like? And really just taking a year to really standardize what does this look like in practice, so then we can be consistent and clear with our communities and really empower them to use the data to inform their own lives, their own communities, the students that they work with. And then other phases would be train the ambassadors. It would start out with the advisory board members and staff, and then expand even further to community members, to church groups, to career centers, to different clubs as well. To really just, again, engage and operationalize this work. I think we're building a lot of tools and we're building a lot of momentum, but we really need to standardize what this looks like in practice. And I think we're at a really good turning point where we can start standardizing these best practices, and just come together to have this call to action to our state and what it needs when it comes to data literacy, and digital literacy as well. Next slide, please. Who would implement this action? This is the last slide that I want to talk about. It's really a collaborative joint mission. We really want to work as an advisory board with the staff to really develop, again, these best practices. When we talk about data literacy, when we talk about completion rates, what does this mean? And really just working together to equip ambassadors to then go out in their communities and host their own data walk, maybe with less support from C2C. They're a small team. We really want to be mindful of that. And so it's really just working on training materials and just getting on the same page of what this looks like in practice. And I'll wrap it up now because I know we have a minute left, but I do want to see if there's any immediate questions from board members. Okay, if not, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. And so this is just a summary. What are the opportunities for this action? Really leveraging, like Dr. Gamboa said, our lived experiences. We have access to so many networks, so many different areas of expertise, and we really want to leverage that in action and in community with each other. And this is just amplifying our work even more, knowing that C2C is a smaller agency. We're new, we're still developing a lot of tools and resources, and really just amplify the current work and kind of, again, operationalize and extending our impact as well. And the beneficiaries are so many, but the main two that we wanted to talk about was students and families, and then practitioners, just so then they can have access to the data, and then we can do more projects like the lesson plan challenge as well.
And we want to thank you all for giving voice to those that often in our communities feel not heard. And so this gives us the opportunity to make that happen. So thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're right at time. That was fantastic. Thank you. So what I'd love to do now is move to our second presentation, which is Member Johnson. So Member Johnson, if you feel ready, you can come off mute and we can get your timer started.
All right, thank you. And I think there's going to be a lot of synergy, so I'm excited for our conversation following this. Member Johnson, and I'm presenting my proposal on engagement plans for data providers. I'm going to try and keep it really brief in case there's any questions or maybe to catch us up on time. So next slide. So my goals of this proposal are really to increase access and feedback loops with data users, especially, again, as was previously mentioned, like we have a tool now and more tools are continuing to be developed. Additionally, this proposal is really trying to maximize reach through the current partnerships that C2C already has, the relationships and the resources. I think because of what was mentioned earlier this morning around the fiscal outlook, but also too around the staffing, right? C2C is a small team, so how do we maximize the relationships, partnerships that are already in place? Next slide. So the nature of the proposal, as this proposal is titled, it's really just trying to look at increasing access and awareness of C2C tools by deepening the partnership with data providers through engagement plans. So exactly as it's titled is what I'm hoping we can see happen. Right, data providers are comprised of a wide variety of agencies and institutions in the state. And, everyone who works at or attends these institutions and agencies are ideal data users as they experience, work, and lead within the education and employment pipeline. So they're exactly the data users we hope to see using it are people within these agencies, within the data providers. And so additionally, data providers already play a significant role in helping C2C create tools by providing the data. So this would ensure that their direct constituents are utilizing the tools that they're helping to create. So also sort of making sure that they're getting back also what they're putting in. But also the last thing I sort of want to mention is something we don't always talk about with the data providers, but they play a significant leadership role at C2C. The governing board, which is comprised of the 21 members, 11 of which are data providers and agency reps. So they are leaders of Cradle-to-Career. They're going to review these proposals and our past proposals. And so I think it's really important between their leadership, the role they play in making these tools, and who works in and experiences their agencies. Like they make them prime places to be doing outreach or to be partnering with doing outreach. And so next slide, please. So sort of operationalizing this, if for those of you who have read the proposal, which I'm assuming is all of you, you have noticed it was really sort of brief. There wasn't a ton around specifics around how to operationalize it. And that was because that was intentional. I was really trying to make sure there's as much flexibility as possible, right? Each data provider is different. And to have successful engagement, like what we've been talking about all day within their agencies, it'll include different actions, right? And so if we don't give flexibility, then it makes it even harder to have successful outreach. The engagement plans ideally would be co-created between the relevant Cradle-to-Career staff and the relevant data provider staff to ensure that they have what they need to share the tools within their agencies and maximize access to their data users. Also, this co-creation would allow the Cradle-to-Career team to have heightened awareness of where feedback could be sought from, right? Like who's using it and where can we go seek some feedback from them. But additionally, it would also let them know where else to spend their time. If they know these data agency, the data providers are spending a lot of time reaching out to their constituents, then maybe it makes it a little bit easier for for C2C staff to say like, okay, we're going to spend our time over here doing these types of events instead, or focusing on this audience instead. Additionally, these engagement plans could be evergreen, right? Like this is the general thing that we can depend on each other to do and provide. Or anytime there's a tool launch, or it could be made each time, right? A very specific thing. Again, I think really those doing the work are going to know what makes the most sense. And so I want to make sure there's as much flexibility, which is why to operationalize, which is why the proposal is sort of vague. But that's just, again, I want to make sure that this is like an empowering thing for C2C staff and the data providers, and not sort of just like a check, a box to check. And my final slide, in close, Cradle-to-Career's mission is to be California's source of actionable data and research. And to ensure action comes from the tools being developed, we must make sure those with the authority to make change in the Cradle-to-Career pipeline are aware and utilizing the good work being done here by the team, by the 2 advisory boards. And so that's really sort of what the sort of message I want to leave you all with. But that sort of brings me to the end of my presentation.
Member Johnson, if I can be helpful, are you asking if folks want to ask you any questions?
Yes, there's 3 minutes to ask me questions. If not, we can move along.
Hi, Member
Member
Takagi. Thank you for your proposal. I think this is the first one that ever included like direct engagement with data providers. So I really love that we're bringing them into the fold, especially to put a face to these agencies. I think they can be like kind of a black box, and like especially there has been concerns about security, data privacy, different things like that from the public about C2C and the data tool. So I think this would be a good way to kind of disarm some of those concerns and really just educate the public on this collaborative effort. I think one thing that comes to mind is that, there are concerns or notes that C2C is very higher education focused, very higher education data focused. So I think if we can showcase some workforce development agencies and just show, not favoritism, but like show like a broad range of mix of people, I think would show people like this is truly a collaborative effort, not just a higher education, like you have to go to college to get, these things. There's a lot of misconceptions, I think, around that I've heard from community members. So I think if we can uplift different agencies, I think that would just show how dedicated C2C is to making this work and to showing students and their families what the possibilities are post high school as well.
Thank you, Member Takagi. I think that's exactly the point. I think it's mutually beneficial, right? Because the data providers are investing a lot of time, effort, attention. And so how do we make sure too that their work is being highlighted here, but also vice versa, that the people within their agencies also get to benefit and are well aware of it, of what's going on with Cradle-to-Career and how they can leverage this in their work.
Member Gamboa.
Maybe thinking about how we can leverage and collaborate with union representatives across the state as well would help us in changing some of this dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to your point, Member Gunboy, I think it's like the agencies, right? They have listservs. They have all their union rep listservs, right? So maybe they're saying like their commitment in this engagement plan is like, oh yeah, we're going to use our listservs and email them out that this tool launched. Something as simple as that, right? Because people don't always know what's going on. Everyone's focused on what they're working on, and they might not know that they have access to this tool. And so something as simple as like a commitment from the data providers to say like, oh yeah, we're going to email all of our listservs, which includes our union reps or whatever, that this tool is now available for them to use. That's one more point of contact about a tool that Cradle-to-Career created that and is providing, and another touch point, again, too, from a trusted messenger, right? If it's coming from internal, they might actually receive that email. It won't go to junk, different things like that.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that concludes our second presentation. And what I'd like to do now is, perfect, we're already here. Open it up for public comment, and I'd love for my colleague Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez to please lead us through the section.
Confirming that there's no one at the C2C office wishing to comment. Moving on to Zoom, for members of the public attending via Zoom, I'd ask that you raise your hand at this time. Pausing. Okay, seeing no raised hands, I will close the public comment portion of this agenda item.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I did see a member hand go up. So Member Maestas, would you like to ask something?
Yeah, I just had a question on the first presentation. Would this be an ongoing ambassador training program for future members of this advisory board?
I'll chime in. The plan would be to have it be ongoing, probably hosted through the C2C staff would probably be like the main domain like operator of it, just because again, advisory board members like will term off. But it really is to just empower them and give them the right tools of like, here's a template, a presentation template that you can use if you're talking about this in a meeting with your supervisor, or if you're meeting with students, here's some talking points that you can use to talk about C2C, what it does, mission, vision, as well. Just kind of giving some footing and some tools for you to then leverage so you actually can go out and go to the events table, do different things that make sense for you and your community as well. So it's really adaptable. But yeah, it would be ongoing. And then ideally, it was a multi-year phased initiative, but ideally other ambassadors can get trained and then they can train members of their community as well. So it's not just on the C2C staff. But I was really hoping to have advisory board members really chime in and support the staff in developing these documents and these templates. So then again, it can live beyond them and it's not so much on the staff to do a lot of this onboarding as well. And I also just think it's time that we start standardizing a lot of these processes and documents for the next generation of advisory board members.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for the clarifying question. So I do want to be clear that we did collapse the 10-minute proposal times. So I'm going to try and have us steer away from questions at this time. Really what's in front of us at this point in time is your deliberations. And so what we'd love to do is and we are slightly behind schedule, but we'll see how we do with time. Our thought was to have 10 minutes for the first part of discussion, which is when y'all focus on the Venn diagram comparison chart in your workbook. And I'd love to open it up for you all to start raising your hands, start getting the conversations flowing. Remember, this is really important for you all to start discussing things because this is whomever will write the report at the end. They'll use this conversation for that content, right? And Alex, please, if you'd like to start.
Sure thing.
Getting us started. Brilliant. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Really looking forward to hearing your deliberations and discussions. So we have 10 minutes for this first set of questions and discussions. So I'll open up the floor to you all and ask how do these proposals complement and reinforce each other? Let's start there. And I see Member Jones with your hand up.
Yeah, just want to say shout out to all members who participated in these proposals. I actually really enjoyed reading them, and they just felt like that makes so much sense. So like literally both of them. And in terms of complimenting, when I was reading them, like yes, we do need to loop in the data providers, and then that I feel like that truly expands access. And then it's also this trusted messenger piece that we keep saying, and us building our own confidence around the material as advisory board members in terms of this onboarding piece and how do we continue to onboard. So it I want to have my cake and eat it too. So how in my mind, I'm just like, well, how can we not just do both? Like in my mind, it's like the advisory board members are learning, being onboarded, know these different pieces. And as someone mentioned, like we are either partnering with some of these data providers or work with some of these data providers. And it's like, okay, well, once we know all these different things, how come we are not also training our data providers and then moving forward? Because the reason why I really like the idea of both is because in silos, it's like when we look at just the data provider piece, I'm worried about something that we said before, it just staying in academia language and it just kind of staying at the top and never really fully reaching community. Versus when you are able to combine both, it's just like chef's kiss. So yeah, I love them both. That's all I'm gonna say. And they complement each other very well.
Thank you, Member Jones. Member Lopez Valdez.
Yes, shout out to the authors of both proposals. I started thinking about this in one of our conversations earlier this year around data providers and more around like the undocumented student piece. But because of disagreements, we're kind of still thinking about how to move forward with this. But really appreciating this these engagement models, these engagement plans, like I think it's important. The way I kind of see this, these proposals complementing each other and reading uplifting the work is that yes to everything Member Jones said, and I also think about how the trainer model kind of creates that bridge to what we need more of, what we need like that what we need more of, and how is that communicated to the data providers, right? So like there is that the again the feedback loop, two-way communication, where the trusted messengers are hearing what the communities need, and that just moves up or downstream, whatever, however we want to see it. So we have that ongoing level of communication to see like what do we need more of. If it's more of like the workforce development piece, do we need more of like the childhood, the little ones, like what does that look like? And so I really appreciate this. I think that um I say yes to both. And just thinking about this just like aligns to the vision of the work, and also um, being able to elevate what's happening here right now. Thank you.
So we hear, I think, a lot of points of commonality and enthusiasm for both proposals. Are there areas where the proposals diverge? Yeah, Member Gottlieb.
I think one of the areas, and you know, frankly, I really do care for both of these proposals, and I appreciate the synergy between them and the synergy between previous proposals. One, you know, major difference obviously is in one case, we as the advisory board, we as other kind of volunteers of the board are the ambassadors to the system, and in another, it's more that the data providers themselves are the ambassadors to the system. I think one concern I had initially was, are all data providers able to play that function? I think we've all been a part of um, um, conversations with data providers or data folks where it's a very long presentation with little context, right? So like it's definitely it's hard to, when you're so into the data, it's hard to communicate the data versus I think folks maybe in our roles that are more community oriented that craft narrative around it. So I do think that's one area of difference between these. I do think that actually the first one solves for the second in more trainings, in viability for this. So there's some commonality and fixing in there, but it is just worth noting the kind of role the data provider is to provide data versus talk about the data. So what does that come with when they're not a volunteer of the board, and how do we kind of align that with the first?
Other thoughts around how these proposals either complement one another or contrast from one another? Yeah, Member Johnson.
Thank you. I think to Member Gottlieb's point and Member Jones' point, I actually think where they complement each other as a duo is that they are opposite, right? You're asking messengers from two different ends. And so it really is sort of like one is looking from the top down and the other is looking at from like the bottom up. And so hopefully, right, that would capture a lot more data users in combo or in concert with each other. And so I think where they contrast sort of helps to expand the reach a bit more, but I think Member Gottlieb was absolutely correct in terms of they are looking at sort of two different areas to start at, or two very different starting points in terms of audience. And then to Member Jones' point, I think that's their strength in being together rather than sort of standing by themselves.
Well, with those reflections, why don't we then move to the big picture reflection chart? We have approximately 30 minutes allocated to focus in on the questions included in this chart, which I think will get us approximately back on schedule. And so, yes, thank you for putting that up. So the opportunity here is to reflect on sort of 4 different topics. Which proposals have the strongest connection to the mission, vision, and authority of C2C? Which proposals have the highest likelihood of success and the highest potential impact and benefit? What are the potential risks and drawbacks? We've already started to hear a little bit of both. And then which of the proposals fit into the 12-month annual work plan and 5-year timeline? So with that, why don't we start with this question of mission and vision and authority? I think you've already heard in the comments so far, kind of touching on the way that these proposals really advance the mission. Is there anything that folks want to speak to here? Is there a proposal between the two that maybe has a stronger connection? Yeah, Member Karmazin?
So I compared each proposal, and let me just pull up my notes on that. As a new advisory board member, I felt that the train the trainer ambassador model met the rubric at a higher rate. So I felt like it was strongly aligned with the mission to expand access and connect individuals with the data. I'm just going to go down my questions. I think it had a high impact, high direct immediate benefit through equitable access and ambassador training. A potential risk or drawback could be ambassador turnover, inconsistency in training, funding, or staffing constraints. And then I believe that this proposal was feasible with the 12-month ambassador training and a rollout and 5-year community expansion. So those were my notes on the comparison between the two. And I was very interested in knowing more about the train the trainer ambassador model.
Yeah, Member Jones.
I'll say one thing that was kind of mentioned as a con, but also a pro in my mind when we talk about turnover. Because we are only in these seats for so long, and if this truly is something that is implemented as an onboarding process, like just think about the amount of foot soldiers that you now have. Even when we leave these positions, we still have the toolkit, we still have the information, and we're still working in these various communities. So I feel like you're able to kind of spread the word long after someone still sits in the seat, because we're still going to be very concerned about these issues. But when we solely think about the data providers, that's kind of just really what's going to happen is they're probably going to assign it to one person. That one person, or maybe 2 people in that little area to kind of think about it. But however, I think you're able to spread the information across different regions, might I add, since we all serve and live in different areas and different capacities as well. So I think when I think about impact, alignment, and mission, I really, really love and value the train the trainer model and just see it as something that needs to be implemented as long-standing. But ultimately my vote is both. So, but just have to say that.
The good news is there isn't actually a vote. So you all are here to reflect and share your deliberations that then will be passed along to the board. So you all get to share that all that thinking will be so helpful in this process. So, yeah. Member Meister? Oh,
So in
No.
relation to the vision and mission for both of these, I feel like the engagement plan is probably closer to that mission and vision. Even though I support both and they're both really important. And I really appreciate, Member Jones's like comment, right? They might push it off on someone. But I feel like, with the state, right, in our counties, we have a lot of really great programs out there. And so it does happen a lot of times that things get pushed off to one or two people and then, that person is tasked with it. So I feel like an engagement plan is very important. But I think there's still so much to be built, and I appreciate, Member Johnson's thinking and concept, right? This is put out there for, more discussion and more framework. And so I think that's going to be really important that when we talk about an engagement plan, that we really have those specific criteria about what engagement means, right? A vision and a purpose and an outcome that we want. So I just wanted to share that.
Member Takagi?
Hi, Member Takagi. Just building off of that, I do think feedback loops with data providers are important. I know when we think of feedback loops, we think about it as like in community engagement because we are the community engagement board. But I think feedback loops with data providers, because they are investing so much into Cradle-to-Career, into the research agreements, I think some type of feedback loop. I think I'd be interested in having a discussion with the data providers of like, do they have the bandwidth for it? What would that look like for in practice? Are there confidentiality? I'm sure there's a lot of bureaucratic barriers I would have to overcome as well. But I even think just having a quote from a data provider, whether that's from CSAC, the Department of Employment, just like what has been participating in this process mean for them, maybe why they decided to partner. I think getting some of that, whatever that looks like, I think that would be helpful, I think, in sustaining C2C and also building trust with community members. I think in this time of mistrust, when people are questioning the data that they're getting, questioning the information. So I think it'd be interesting to have those conversations so then we can offer a framework, create an objective, and then make it sustainable, because we don't want this to be a one and done thing of like, oh yeah, we interviewed CSAC one time, or this department one time, then that was it. Like this should be an ongoing relationship to really expand our work.
Let's move to the next sort of two questions of looking and talking in a bit more detail on the likelihood of success and impact of these, and then also the potential risks and drawbacks. Where do you see sort of that likelihood of success, and where are the risks and drawbacks that might hamper that success? Yeah, Member Gamboa?
I'm going to go back to Member Jones' comment, which is, yes, the turnover rate is going to be a big concern. But I think strategically, as we start thinking about who would be members that we would want to bring on, that's the key part. And I wouldn't want to grow to I don't want 1,000 community members right now trying to jump onto this. But I think if we made it manageable, do it 5, do it 10, so that we can start training and learning from the model that we're trying to anticipate and grow. That's the best way in action to get that going. Going to your second question of like, what might be a threat of this is, is getting somebody who isn't in it for the right reason. Because I think data is a slippery slope. Once you open that data and start interpreting it, and if there's no guidance on it, people can take it and sway it to whatever benefit they might want to go towards. And I think ultimately everybody on this committee and everybody on this board understands like what we're in it for. And I would assume that you would bring in members to join us on that mission and that vision to grow that as well. But that would be something to definitely keep in mind.
Other thoughts on the likelihood of success and potential risks or challenges? Member Jones and then Member Lopez Valdez.
First thing, the likelihood of success is really, really high once everything is established. Really having that uniform language. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Member Takagi, because just making sure we're all on the same page, saying the same thing, and again in plain English. Challenges, of course, in order to kind of set the foundation for all of this, it's going to require a lot of legwork and a lot of time investing, like naturally. But I think it's just one of those necessary challenges and barriers that once the foundation is set and you are over it, it's really going to pay off in the long run. But that's the main challenge that I see, but it's worth it again, in my opinion.
Thank you. Member Lopez Valdez?
Again, prefacing that I love both proposals. I think the one that's really actionable for me is the, building out an ambassador program, just thinking about the opportunities that we have to build out like many mentioned, a strong foundation to lead us to a framework that can be like scaled, duplicated across different regions, and being able to meet communities where they are is going to be super important with messaging, with messaging guides and toolkits. I think it's like an important part. Again, one of the risk that comes with that I think about is just budget. I'm thinking about just like what is the budget associated, with this proposal, and thinking about um what that look like to engage folks, if there is no budget line for this. I think that's just my biggest worry. And just also, along those same lines is that we just need to be what's it called, being mindful that if we don't have an incentive for them, then that turnover rate will be a reality. And so how can we prevent that and really build a strong foundation along the way, so this doesn't live just here, right? And the staff is the CTC staff feels um uh can and be able to really lead this when new board members come on board.
Anyone we haven't heard from yet who'd like to weigh in? Yeah, Member Lopez?
There is a lot to think through, so I just keep thinking I want to say one comment and then someone says something else and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to say that comment, and I have the stuff up and I keep rereading. But one thing that's top of mind right now is just to train the trainer ambassador program. It just makes me think, like in our meeting today, how we're being asked to like participate more and engage and maybe help represent C2C at different events, which I am like excited to do. But I think, yeah, having something more structured and creating a foundation, how Member Jones talked about, where whoever chooses to attend and help co-host these events, right, especially in person, it would be nice to have some uniformity, some training, right, where we all kind of are going to represent C2C in the same way. So that's kind of what comes top to mind for me in terms of like, could this be successful? Yes, because as we want to engage more with our communities, we all want to be professionally representing C2C in the same light and not people interpreting or communicating in different ways that might contrast or not align with the vision and mission of C2C. So that's something that I keep thinking about. I think that it wouldn't just be a feat for our advisory board as well, and just considering, right, how the actual C2C staff, which, they are small, how much would we need to take up their time, their energy, their efforts, and just being mindful of that as well. Because as excited as we are, we need to keep in mind the feasibility for their input and their commitment with building this out as well.
Member Johnson.
Thank you. This conversation is actually like bringing me back to what feels like last year or even earlier this year, whenever my first meeting was, because I think we were having really similar conversations around the community conversations proposals, and really just about like, how do we make sure that whoever is going to be representing C2C, especially if you're external to C2C staff, has like what they need to do that well, right? Because there is always room to like maybe not say something correctly, or maybe say something that's more of our thought on it rather than C2C's. And so how do we make sure what we're saying is building trust, building recognition for C2C? And I think everyone's comments today is like making me excited, because it sounds like the train the trainer proposal, or the steps to build it up into a program, really sort of help build that foundation of at least making sure that the advisory board, you know, feels comfortable to have these conversations. And then how do we build from that to go broader? Because I think that's what we spent a lot of time discussing around community conversations, was like, how do we make sure the messenger is like the right messenger, the safe messenger with like the right message? And so I feel like I was getting some like deja vu listening to everyone.
Y'all are, consistent vision and values group, absolutely. So, I think, Member Lopez, you mentioned the staff, C2C staff time, and I think a few other folks have as well. That feeds and relates to the fourth question on the big picture reflection chart around how this fits into the work plan. And so I welcome, based on what we all know of the work plan and the discussions in today's meeting to date, how do you see these proposals fitting into both the annual work plan and the 5-year timeline work plan? These are questions that we will ask C2C staff as part of the Light Touch feasibility study. So no, of course, no expectation to speak to anything you're not quite sure of yet, but I think it is helpful to kind of think about how this aligns to the other priorities and the plans. Member Takagi?
Member Takagi speaking. I think building on year 4 and 5 of the 5-year work plan, this really has the capacity to deepen regional engagement. I think if done so correctly, especially when with the public tools and resources. Again, I think that these proposals are coming at a really good turning point of C2C, where I feel like we do have a little bit more capacity. We have a little bit more resources under our belt to then standardize this. Like, really making sure that we're on the same page, because we don't want to be going out to our communities, tabling and saying the wrong thing, misspeaking. I think that would really contribute to mistrust. And I also think that this contributes to user-centered design. I think this can strengthen back our feedback loops, let people know like, hey, we're listening. We want to take your feedback seriously. We want to incorporate that in our work plan. And we want to make sure it's representative of California's diversity. I also think that this is part of our engagement work plan, the ongoing engagement, again, solidifying those feedback loops and activities, and then transparency and trust. I think if we can come together as an advisory board, as a group, to show that we're invested in these communities, that we're invested in doing this work, we can really prioritize clear and open communication. And I do think it's going to take some legwork to really put in this plan. I anticipated a year to a year and a half of just standardizing these documents, making sure that we have the data dictionary translated, all these things ready, and then we can start training ambassadors and start doing the work. But I think we have a lot of the tools and resources. It's really just putting it together, which I know is going to take a lot of staff time. But when putting together this proposal, Dr. Gamboa and I knew there was limited capacity, there's limited budget. So we really want to take the next year and a half, plan, work, do this work with the data walks, get some feedback, do a lot of intel gathering, and make this really strong so we can actually build a sustainable program. So we're not just building something and then after the advisory board members term off, it dies with them. So we want to make sure it's sustainable, and we can loop in our networks, because that's one of the reasons why we were here and appointed, is because of our networks, because of our intersectional identities, and then just the passion that we have for this work.
Member Gottlieb?
So I agree with Member Johnson that like this is deja vu from last year. There's similar proposals, there are similar issues, which are time and money. This process is very out of sync with the state budget process. So agreeing with Member Takagi, like whatever happens is not a part of the 1 year plan. It can't be part of the 1 year plan. There's no money, there's no staff for that. It's part of the year 3 to 5, so that the C2C office can start thinking about how to advocate within the budget for an additional staff member, for additional capacity in X way to create the resources that either proposal would need to create the to probably hire a staff member to like manage that aspect of member member collaboration, member oversight, whatever it is, right? So I'll just say of the timelines, like think year 3 to 5, and then what can we do here and now to work with the office to change years 3 and 5 to add some capacity building into the budget.
Thank you, Member Gottlieb. I see 3 hands, so I will get to you all in just a minute, but do want to pause to see if anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet have any comments that they want to add. I'll do a nice long wait time. It's my favorite. Okay, and Member Gamboa.
Thank you, Member Gamboa. Wanted to also again stress on this one that as we embark on this, it's not, just a 1 year plan. It'll be a 3 to 5 year down plan. Thinking heavily about how do we measure success on these opportunities as well, right? So what are those metrics? Because if there is no budget right now, can we build that budget in the future? But that future budget would then require data. So we need to be able to measure those opportunities and bring in the information needed to make that successful. But excited to collaborate with each and every one of you and get this going.
Member Johnson?
Yeah, I think for the train the trainer proposal, I do imagine to like see the whole thing come together, it'll take a bit of time. But I do think there's baby steps towards that, right? Even thinking about the data walks and having members join, right? Like even having some like core documents of like these are the type of talking points we want you to say as an advisory board member attending these, right? So different things like that. I think there's like ways to build it up that aren't taking away from the work already being done, that can be folded in. And I think similar to the engagement plans proposal, I think for me that's a bigger, like a longer on time, and really is more about as tools are being developed, how are we making sure data providers have the tools, and how do we make that a part of the checklist of the release, right? Is like data providers have the tools they need to share with their constituents or those internally about the release. So it shouldn't be like creating brand new tools that are separate from the release, but making sure that data providers are planning to share them out, sharing out the release information and like have what they need from Cradle to Career, whether it is like like the media guide, the social media guides that are already created or different things like that, and knowing concretely like what they will do with that, not just sort of sending it to them blankly. So I think there's room within the work plan to like see these sort of slowly integrated. But yeah, I think to see like big, robust things, we know that's going to take a bit longer with the capacity the staff has.
Thank you, Member Johnson. And we have just a few minutes left. So Member Jones, I'll turn it to you.
Awesome. I was looking at the work plan and under the engagement section, specifically legislative affairs, it was talking about being able to provide information to different legislative stakeholders, personal and community legislative staff, and elected officials. And it made me think, so I work for Blue Educational Foundation, and oftentimes we like really encourage students to advocate. So when Cal Grant reform was on the table, like we were really leaning on our college students, educating them on the whole practice and having them talk with our local assembly members. And so when we think of, or when I think about this train the trainer model, and I'm thinking about student advocates and uplifting student voices, and we're training them on the data, it's like, okay, Now, how are they able to utilize this data and think about college affordability? There was one section talking about how many students have to work while going to school and all those sections. So by empowering our students and giving them this data tool and training them on how to use it, I can also see how they can advocate for that priority area around legislative affairs and making sure that they are the ones talking to this to the legislators and elected officials as well. So I see how that can coincide really well with the work plan.
Member Lopez Valdez, I think I saw your hand up before. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, we have, I think, 1 more minute left in this schedule. Is there anything that folks want to add to this deliberation? Anything that you want to voice that your colleagues or you will take to report out to the governing board at the next step? Anything else to add?
I guess the last thing is the opportunity to, with these feedback loops, to bring something that adds education to our new members, because as we said, we keep rotating. We'll have live documents, we'll have live feedback to everybody and be able to come on board. And I'm sorry, member Mastis, I think I interrupted. So you're next.
Fine, member Gamboa. I think my last thing that I wanted to share was very similar to what member Gamboa said, but also that we just need to keep moving forward and doing the work with that, doing these baby steps. But let's just keep doing the work and you know, we got to keep moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you all. It's such a pleasure to hear your reflections and deliberations on these proposals. So I appreciate that. And I think now I'm turning things back to Mary Kate Cruz Jones.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for leading that session for us. All right. So members, we have reached agenda item 7 and we're back on track with time. So this is fantastic. What I'd love to do is during this agenda item, the office would like to take the opportunity to highlight a few community engagement advisory board members for their partnership and ambassadorship related to C2C's mission and vision. And at this time, I would love if my colleague Angelique Palomar could highlight this work. So thank you, and please take it over, Angelique.
Good afternoon. Hello again, members. Angelique Palomar, Deputy Director of Communications. I'm going to take the time for this agenda item to thank 4 members who've gone above and beyond in their roles as C2C ambassadors. First, thank you to members Lorenzo Gamboa and Marisa Johnson, who have been collaborating with the office to improve our language access, particularly for our Spanish-speaking communities. Lorenzo and Marisa have guided our efforts to meet non-native language speakers where they are at and to ensure that our resources are accessible. They've been incredible thought partners in this space, and we are so grateful to have them as our language access liaisons. Next, I'd like to share appreciation to member Alexis Takagi for her ambassadorship. At the March Joint Advisory Boards meeting, members recommended to the office that we should provide more opportunities to collaborate with you all, whether it be a blog, a fact sheet, visualization. The idea was to share real use cases that promote C2C's data tools. So prior to launching our Query Builder resource, the office reached out to all current advisory board members at the time to gauge their interest in getting an early access to this Query Builder dataset, and with the goal of developing a product that we can point to as an example use case for C2C's data resource. Member Takagi developed a fact sheet using the Query Builder data and combined it with 2 existing data sets from other sources for her practitioner colleagues to help guide students on their next steps post-graduation. Thank you, Member Takagi. Lastly, I want to thank member Mike Nguyen for his continued ambassadorship. Mike has been collaborating with the office to partner with his student-led campus organization at UC Berkeley. And in collaboration with his organization, Cradle-to-Career aims to host panel discussions where we can focus on C2C's engagement and how we're prioritizing youth equity and really get in front of students. I'll now pass it back to Mary Kate to share relevant upcoming events.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So on our next slide, we have, oh, yeah, fabulous, fantastic. We have these upcoming events. So prior to today's meeting, the office had asked you all, our Community Engagement Advisory Board members, to share events that are happening in your community that you'd like to uplift today in our meeting. And so I'd like to specifically thank members Gamboa, Johnson, Maestas, and Takagi for sharing events that are reflected here on the slide. I know other folks had shared other events that maybe either happened before we met here today. So thank you all for your engagement. And I just am really excited about this virtual bulletin board seen here. And I would encourage our members to take a look and uplift within your own networks. So thank you again. And then I just wanted to take one more second before we open it up for member questions and comments on this agenda item to just thank you all for today. I know that it was a really tall order that we put in front of you. We've been saying that we want to change engagement. For agenda item 5, you had 15 specific questions that we wanted your detailed feedback on, and you gave it to us. And then you put together a whole workbook of your ideas to feed into that really rich deliberation. And 6 of you all are totally new to this process. So I just want to take a second of gratitude to say, I see all of you, we hear all of you, and just thank you for your time, thoughts, and sharing your unique perspective with us. We really appreciate it. And on that note, I'm happy to hand it off to anybody else. Should anybody else want to say anything else? Don't get quiet on me now. Okay, brilliant. Member Johnson, please.
I just wanted to share that today is the final day of National Transfer Student Week. So if you haven't read anything or done anything, you might want to check it out. Not that it's the last day to ever celebrate transfer students, but it is the week of celebration. So just want to sort of mention that.
Wonderful addition. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh. Member Maestas, please.
I just want to state that I really enjoyed today and thank you and the staff for all of your hard work in sending out reminder emails. I do sometimes look over a lot of my emails, so I appreciate just, being supportive and understanding and staying on top of things.
Member Gottlieb, please.
I'll just echo my thanks. It was a much different meeting than this time last year. And I think it was really well run and really well organized. So thank you all for that.
Member Gradich, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this was my first advisory board meeting, and so I really appreciate having been here today. And I also want to say I really liked the workbook. So if you wanted feedback on that, it was great for the initial introduction of looking at these proposals, and I do feel like the resources that were provided were really wonderful. So I just wanted to shout those out.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you. I think one of the best places to always end is in a place of gratitude, and we heard a lot of that today. So thank you all. And then also, please feel free to keep that feedback coming. As you heard from Shannon Serrato earlier today, we're just kind of starting things. They're percolating. So the office would be happy to these thoughts offline and continue to work in the community with y'all. So
let's move on to our next agenda item, which is general public comment. So if I could pass this over to my colleague, Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, please walk us through this.
Confirming there's no one at the C2C office wishing to public comment. Moving on to Zoom. For members of the public who are interested in a general public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Pausing. Okay. Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public comment portion.
Wonderful. All right, members, we did it. We're rounding our last agenda item, which is adjournment. So before I officially adjourn this meeting, I would just again like to say a big thank you, and that's to all of the speakers that we had with us here today. I appreciate your time and your effort invested in preparing for your presentation. I would also like to thank you members again for all of the fabulous work that you did here today, and then the public that joined us. I know the public wasn't as talkative as sometimes they are in other meetings, but I know you were listening too. So all of our work here today is helping ensure that, the work remains transparent, that we're inclusive, and that we're responsive to the needs of Californians. There was a lot of important conversations that we took a look at, that we had, and I particularly wanted to acknowledge the fine work of the office and staff, so thank you so much, as well as you all again. So the governing board will be meeting on Friday, November 14th. That date is coming up pretty quick. We're about 3 weeks away from it. So please, members, feel free to